What's up, guys? It's your boy, Omni-sensei. Welcome to What If I Was Reborn in Naruto as Branch HYUGA? Becoming a Villain. Part 4. Like, share, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. Also, remember to check out the original story, link in the description. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. Arrogant. In the Hokage building, Hiruzen Sarutobi slammed his palm heavily on the table, causing the intelligence scroll to fall and hit Danzo Shimura's foot. "Don't get angry, Hiruzen," Danzo said, picking up the scroll. "Anger makes people lose their rationality. I never thought I'd see the day when you'd be lecturing me." Hiruzen took a deep breath, suppressing his rage. "Danzo, what do you think?" "The intelligence is very clear," Danzo replied. "The Byakugan of HYUGA has been taken. Recently, several nursery rhymes have appeared in the land of hot water. When pieced together, they reveal that the bounty station is involved in exchanging the Byakugan for the Shikatsumiyaku. Each song contains only a small amount of useful information, but together they form a coherent message. The likelihood of this being false intelligence is minimal." The third Hokage lit his pipe, exhaling a ring of smoke. "Do the other villages know about HYUGA's disappearance? It hasn't spread yet, but it's not impossible. We've had too many skirmishes with Kumogakure and Kirigakure in recent months." "What does Kirigakure say?" "They seem to be verifying the truth of the information. Their intelligence team thinks it's a trap set by us." "Ha, a bunch of idiots. The land of water has good reason to think that." Hiruzen fell silent for a moment before continuing. "Have we traced the source of these nursery rhymes?" "No, there are too many traveling merchants." "Tell me your thoughts, Danzo. I know you're good at dealing with this sort of thing." "All right," the bandaged man said casually. "I think it's possible that there's an internal problem within the bounty station. Exchanging a Byakugan for the Shikatsumiyaku is a big deal. Whoever manages this transaction would gain favor from the top. Perhaps the lucky person was targeted by their colleagues, who then leaked the information to disrupt the deal. That's a very likely possibility. But that's not the most crucial thing, Hiruzen," Danzo grinned. "Give the order, Hokage. What should we do?" Hiruzen extinguished his pipe, staring at the majestic Hokage rock in the distance. "Send someone to disrupt the deal and retrieve the Byakugan. Those eyes belong to the Hyuga clan, and the Hyuga belong to the village." "That's more like it, Hokage." Hiruzen Sarutobi turned to discuss what level of force to send, but as he turned, he suddenly caught a glimpse of his reflection in the glass. Only 5 months since the war began, and his hair had turned much whiter. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed inwardly. It's time to consider candidates for the next Hokage. Fuguki Suikazan looked at the people in front of him, frowning. His appearance was odd, with long orange hair reaching his waist, sharp teeth, and green stripes on his cheek. From a certain angle, he indeed resembled a watermelon, a rotten one at that. Of course, most who dared to mock him as watermelon to his face were torn apart by him. He was the leader of the 7 ninja swordsmen, a peak sword user, a killer demon. Yet, even a killer demon was now frowning, restraining himself from taking excessive action. "Marinosuke, you bastard, why have you brought your clan here? I've said before, I'm the boss of this battlefield." "Don't be so heartless, brother." Marinosuke Kagaya removed his hat, revealing the Kagaya clan's characteristic red dot on his forehead. Though he looked a bit frail, the entire shinobi world knew how crazy the Kagaya clan could be in battle, their brutal taijutsu and strong bodies putting most taijutsu specialists to shame. "Our Kagaya clan has been reassigned to the Kumogakure battlefield. Those brute lightning users are the perfect opponents for us. Marinasook took out a scroll. I came to ask for your help. Pick some reliable people to follow me. This is the Mizuki's order. Fuguki took the scroll, glanced at it, and then threw it behind him. Samahata let out a happy gurgle and tore the scroll to pieces. If it's the Mizuki's order, I obey. He didn't say the second part, but the Kagaya clan already knew. Who do you think you are? Waving the Mizuki's order to command me? Oh dear, your temper hasn't changed a bit. Marinasook shook his head. So, what should I do to get your help? Boom. The massive Samahata slammed into the ground, cracking the hard rock like a spiderweb. Fuguki grinned, baring his sharp teeth. So, it's a fight again? Just like before, you're quite the troublemaker. Marinasook closed his eyes. In the next moment, his quiet and gentle demeanor vanished, his body sprouting over 20 sharp, thick-boned spikes like a ferocious demon. It's been a long time since we last met. I've been looking forward to this reunion. Ah, that damn Minato Namikaze has gone to the land of rain. A burly man with a small mustache roared, stomping hard enough to break the cliff. Damn it, we haven't settled our score yet. Beside him, Killer Bee, wearing sunglasses, bobbed his head and said, Big bro's dangerous, handsome as can be, a sight to behold, just less than me. Killer Bee, the burly man glared. If you say another word. The Hachibi Jinchuriki shrugged, making a gesture of surrender, smiling mischievously. At that moment, a bird flew rapidly from the distance, circling over Killer Bee's head before dropping an intelligence report. The burly man grabbed it and glanced through, then burst into laughter. The Kagaya clan has arrived on the battlefield. Konoha has also sent many experts here. Bounty Station? Byakugan? Shikutsumiaku? Only cowards plot in the shadows. I am A of Kumogakure. Killer Bee, what are you doing? Oh. The Jinchuriki raised his pen and paper. Writing lyrics, bro. That line you just said was really pro. HYUGA opened his eyes, still in the mad scientist vibe, secret underground base. He stretched his neck, considering a string of text on the scroll. This was his accumulated battle achievements over the past few days, with Minato Namikaze heading to the land of rain. His reporting now had to be directed to Orochimaru. Once he finished writing, he had a slug deliver it. The Branch family youth stretched, then got up. He picked up his mask. Viper-sama, number 5 has been captured. In a dark basement, a severely injured man was thrown to the ground. 2 heavily armed assassins held his hands behind his back, the bones in his shoulders creaking loudly. However, even in this humiliating position, the man didn't dare to resist. He just kept saying, Viper-sama, Viper-sama. I swear I didn't leak any information. I took the scroll and went straight to headquarters. Viper touched his bald head, which was adorned with a poisonous insect tattoo, and sneered. In the land of hot water, only the dealer and I knew about the Byakugan, and the secret scroll was delivered to headquarters by you. Viper-sama. The man kowtowed repeatedly. I didn't know anything about the Byakugan. I always followed your orders and never opened the scroll. Then tell me, who leaked the information? The dealer? Or me? L-Lord, maybe it was someone at headquarters. Shut up. Viper kicked the man in the mouth. You really want to die, saying something like that? The man's mouth was bloodied, half of his teeth knocked out, and he could no longer speak clearly. Originally, I wanted to spare your life. Hold him down. Viper coldly commanded. Ignoring the man's terrified eyes, he performed complex hand seals and pressed his hand on the subordinate's head. This was a memory-manipulating technique. Though effective, Viper was far less skilled in this area than the Yamanaka clan of Konoha. Its use would leave irreparable mental trauma on the victim. The man's screams gradually weakened, and finally, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Viper wearily rubbed his temples and sat back in his chair. Damn. It really wasn't him who leaked the information. But even if he had leaked the Byakugan's details, it wouldn't matter now. Viper's heart chilled. The day that the man calling himself Aizen Sosuke left the bounty station, Viper immediately sent people to report the information to headquarters. The response came quickly. A brief, approve the transaction, but proceed with caution. Viper was granted higher authority and could mobilize more resources from the bounty station. Overjoyed, he met with Aizen Sosuke again that very day. Besides conveying the headquarters approval, they also discussed the specifics of trading the Byakugan and Shikatsumiyaku. Capturing a member of the Kagaya clan alive was a major task, and the bounty station needed time to accomplish it. But unexpectedly, just as everything was progressing smoothly, a disaster struck. Several children's songs containing deadly information suddenly spread wildly in the land of hot water and its surroundings. This deal, which had angered both the fire and water countries, was exposed, making the bounty station's branch in the land of hot water a prime target. In just a few days, the bounty station's intelligence network reported catastrophic news. Experts from the Kagaya clan in Kirigakure had entered the land of hot water, Konoha shinobi had started raiding bounty station bases, and Kumogakure had also focused its attention here. Although the bounty station claimed to be a great nation without borders, it wasn't truly a powerful shinobi village. Otherwise, it would have already established its own bounty nation. With these continuous blows, the bounty station's branch in the land of hot water was on the brink of collapse. Who leaked the information was no longer important. The key now was how to survive. Perhaps it was true that misfortunes never come singly. Just as Viper felt stifled, the secret room suddenly shook violently, the granite walls cracking like a spiderweb, and dust fell from the ceiling. Enemies! Viper was shocked and slapped the side, attempting to escape through the underground passage. But as soon as the hidden door opened, hundreds of tons of water gushed in, sweeping Viper away. Damn it! This scale. It's Kirigakure's water release. They've flooded the underground. Viper cursed but was helpless. The walls of the secret room couldn't withstand such a torrent, being blasted open with numerous holes, and the water level quickly rose to waist height. Viper had no choice but to escape upwards with his subordinate. The closer they got to the surface, the louder the sounds of fighting and screaming became, and Viper's heart sank further. Suddenly, moonlight shone on his face. He had reached the surface. Everywhere he looked, he saw the corpses of bounty station members, many of them torn apart and crushed. Viper's legs trembled, and he lost any will to resist. If they truly went all out, any of the 5 great shinobi villages could annihilate the bounty station. Normally, they tolerated its existence because it facilitated the flow of money and helped ninjas handle shady business. As long as the bounty station didn't cross their bottom line, trading Byakugan and Shikatsumiyaku, stealing the Kekkai Genkai of the shinobi villages, broke the rules. Mice living comfortably in the dirt for too long had foolishly thought they could touch a tiger's tail. Only rivers of blood could calm the beast's fury. Among the piles of bodies, Marinosuke Kagaya turned around, the red mark on his forehead stabbing into Viper's eyes. "Are you the head of this branch? Kagaya clan shinobi?" Viper swallowed hard and struggled to respond. "Yes, sir." "You've got some nerve." Marinosuke walked slowly over to Viper. "Planning to trade our clan members' bodies?" Aye. The moonlight was cold, but Viper felt as if he were in the summer heat, sweating profusely, completely lacking the courage to say yes. As they spoke, 2 groups of shinobi approached from the east and south. Soon, the teams from Kirigakure, Konoha, and Kumogakure surrounded the remaining members of the bounty station, the 3 forces wary of each other but united in cutting off Viper's escape. Such grand efforts. Marinosuke chuckled. Danzo Shimura from Konoha, the 8 Tails Jinchuriki from Kumogakure, and me along with Fuguki Suikazan from Kirigakure. He turned back, calmly saying, "You bounty station folks are quite something, claiming to be a great nation without borders." Aye. Viper's teeth chattered, repeating the same words. Over 200 elite shinobi and 4 famous experts had gathered. With such a lineup, crushing the Bounty Station's branch in the land of hot water was a matter of moments. "Don't be rash, Marinosuke Kagaya." At this moment, Danzo from Konoha spoke. His raspy voice sounded like an old demon mocking in the night. "Let's put our past grievances aside. He might know the name or appearance of the dealer. Extracting information about the Byakugan and Shikatsu Miyaku would benefit both Konoha and Kirigakure." "Humph. Do you think I'm an idiot?" "Old man," Marinosuke Kagaya sneered, gripping Viper's throat, and a jagged bone spike emerged from his forearm, piercing Viper's fragile blood vessels. "Speak. Tell me everything you know. What is the dealer's name?" The fear of death enveloped Viper. He knew that if he resisted now, what awaited him would be far worse than death. So, like a drowning man grasping for a lifeline, he opened his mouth. "Aisensuke." The voice wasn't Viper's. Nearly 200 elite shinobi and 4 renowned experts simultaneously turned to look at the source of the voice. A man wearing an Oni mask walked out of the darkness. His hands were behind his head, strolling leisurely as if in his own garden. Well, Viper." He spoke slowly, with a thick sense of mockery and nonchalance. "Are these Kagaya clan members for me? How considerate of you." Yuto walked slowly, moonlight shining on his demon mask, casting a cold, bright light. He was very careful about hiding his identity. Using the transformation jutsu, he maintained the appearance and height of an adult. The Hanya demon mask he wore had been thoroughly modified. It was now a god's mask cultivated from his own cells. Though it lost the ability to replenish his bloodline after use, some characteristics remained. The powdered remnants of the discarded mask were applied to the inside of the demon mask, making it impervious even to the Byakugan. He discarded everything that could reveal his identity as Yuto, even removing the distinctive Ryun steel. Outwardly, he was flawless. The remaining challenge was his behavior. To the outside world, Yuto appeared as a typical HYUGA clan genius, calm, gentle, composed, and impeccable in conduct. To completely sever ties with his original identity, Aizen Sosuke had to have a very different personality from Yuto. Thus, the man behind the Hanya demon mask was domineering, reckless, and arrogant, nothing like a righteous person. More importantly, the fighting styles of these two identities were never the same. As a shinobi, his appearance, personality, chakra, and mastered jutsus were all different. If someone could still see through this, Yuto would have no choice but to give up, scratch his forehead protector, and defect. Under the moonlight, the mysterious man strolled casually, as if he were in his backyard. "Are these Kagaya clan members for me? How considerate of you." He spoke slowly, his voice resonating through the air, reaching everyone's ears. This audacious arrogance made everyone present realize that this man was formidable. Formidable to the point of lawlessness. A flash of brutality crossed Marinosuke's eyes as bone spikes suddenly grew and pierced into Viper's neck. With a squelch, blood spurted and the head rolled to the ground. "Aisensuke?" Marinosuke's voice was cold. "Did you take the Byakugan to exchange for our clansmen?" He implicated Konoha as well, clearly showing Yuto's performance had a significant deterrent effect. Marinosuke was wary of this mysterious man. Yuto stopped and tilted his head, looking at Marinosuke. "Heh!" Yuto suddenly chuckled. Then, he touched the forehead of the demon mask and smiled lightly at Marinosuke. "An experiment material that can talk." As Yuto touched the forehead of the demon mask, he triggered a hidden mechanism inside, causing the god's mask to adhere to the skin between his brows. The next moment, the mask, cultivated from Yuto's cells, merged into his skin and disappeared. Everything in Yuto's eyes changed. Every cell vibrated with joy as the long-diluted and suppressed blood of the Otsutsuki clan flowed in his veins. The collision of spirit and body generated chakra like a tidal wave, flowing through every acupoint and meridian, surging into his visual nerves, transforming into immense and mystical eye power, affecting all his cells. The caged bird seal vanished. The pure white eyes turned a pale blue. Yudo knew he had gained some incredible power, surpassing the limits of ordinary shinobi understanding, even if only for 3 minutes. For 3 minutes, he was no longer a branded slave of the HYUGA branch family, but a true descendant of a god. God's mask mode. Activate. The transformation was so brief that when Yudo opened his pale blue eyes, Marinosuke only then understood his earlier words. "You!" Marinosuke was furious, unable to control his violent emotions. The power of the Shikatsumiyaku erupted instantly, bone spikes protruding from his body, while numerous sharp white bones surged from the ground. "Dance of the seedling fern," he shouted, using his proud family secret technique, only to realize the man in the demon mask had disappeared. Hearing exclamations, Shinobi looked up. Under the full moon, the man in the Hanya mask floated in the air, bathed in moonlight, looking down at the elite shinobi from 3 major villages. "So tiny," he murmured, diving from the sky, causing a sonic boom, and the air waves alone could uproot trees. Marinosuke was shocked. Dealing with a high-level shinobi with flying capabilities was always the hardest. The immortal Inoki was the best proof. He had to dodge this strike, Marinosuke thought, preparing to use the body flicker technique to dodge left. However, as he moved, an invisible force bound him, not only failing to evade but also pushing him towards the masked man. Yudo collided with Marinosuke. At that moment, gravity and repulsion rapidly shifted, amplifying Yudo's already increased power 100-fold. Boom! A massive shockwave burst, tearing the air, shattering the ground and rocks. A 600-meter-wide crater appeared, with countless bone fragments scattered around. In the center, Yudo held Marinosuke by the neck, lifting him. In Yudo's pale blue eyes, the Kagaya clan members' heartbeat slowed, and chakra ceased to flow. Marinosuke was dying. "Captured," Yudo whispered, shouldering the gradually cooling corpse. Gravity and repulsion were the first powers he gained in God's mask mode. In terms of scale and destructiveness, it couldn't compare to the complete version of the Shinra Tensei. Though it lacked range, its changeability and speed surpassed Nagato's, just slightly behind, but not too far. Activating the Otsutsuki bloodline with the God's mask, Yudo had 3 minutes of power. This eye power and chakra weren't supreme, far from true Six Paths level, but sufficient to accomplish much in this era. It required external activation, had fatal time limits, lacked absolute power, and its abilities were fewer compared to the Rinnegan's diversity. But it was still a half-awakened Tensigen. A powerful man stood in a deep pit, carrying the corpse of Marinosuke Kagaya, about to leave. However, after just a few steps, he was blocked. It was the Kiri Shinobi. Marinosuke was one of the few experts in his clan and a respected elder. Although easily defeated by Yudo, the Kagaya clan could not just watch his body being taken away. The Kagaya clan's actions were matched by the Kiri Shinobi, who would not stand by idly. The reason the 5 great nations and their ninja villages hold vast lands and supreme political power is simple. They can fight. If Kiri's forces let an elite with a Kekkei Genkai from their village be taken away without resistance, it would shake the very foundations of the Land of Water. Returning home without taking action would surely lead to severe punishment from the Mizukage, affecting their families and friends. A large sword was thrust into the ground, wide and thick, tightly wrapped in white bandages. The towering Fuguki Suikazan squinted at Yudo like a beast ready to pounce. Indeed, things wouldn't go smoothly. Yudo sighed internally, estimating the time. The mask mode could last 2 minutes and 15 seconds. He couldn't afford to waste words and had to make the most of the precious 135 seconds in combat. Taking out a sealing scroll purchased from the bounty station, he sealed Marinosuke Kagaya's corpse and looked at Fuguki with a smirk. Almost forgot, having a few spares isn't a bad idea. He gestured to the Kagaya clan members, his half-awakened Tensigen flashing pale blue. The gravitational force twisted like a giant serpent, throwing their bodies into the air. At that moment, many Kiri shinobi formed hand seals. These elite shinobi, belonging to the same team, were well trained, and their hand seal sequences were identical. This was the technique of multiple shinobi using the same jutsu simultaneously to maximize its power. Water release. Exploding water shock wave. The Kiri shinobi roared in unison, and a massive torrent of water surged into the sky, crashing down on Yudo like a tsunami. This was one of Kiri's most powerful B-rank water release techniques, not only devastating but also transforming the battlefield to suit water release users. The pit was instantly filled, turning into a raging lake. Yudo shaped a ball of repulsive force to protect himself, deflecting any approaching wave. A sharp burst of noise tore through the air as Fuguki, gripping his massive sword, Samahata, lunged at Yudo with the force of a mountain. Simultaneously, several hands emerged from beneath Yudo's feet, the heavy water rising to his knees, while numerous high-pressure water bullets shot from the Kiri Jonin's mouths, aiming for Yudo's face. The attacks were swift and deadly, with no blind spots. Yudo's response to the overwhelming assault was to raise his hands and clap them together. In an instant, powerful gravitational and repulsive forces surged from him, creating a deadly field within 10 meters. Gravitational and repulsive forces interchanged rapidly, creating a terrifying area of destruction. Half-awakened Tensigen, twin serpent strangulation, screams of the shinobi filled the air. Except for the physically strong Fuguki, shielded by Samahata, all shinobi within 10 meters were shredded into dust, bones, and organs crushed into fragments, staining the area red. Even the dense water prison and fast water bullets were obliterated by the force field. Fuguki, in agony, had his arms holding the sword torn apart, Samahata's bandages ripped, exposing the bloody shark skin beneath. Ha, indeed, fat ones can take a beating. The man in the demon mask spoke softly, showing no pity as he lifted his foot to crush the leader of the 7 ninja swordsmen. But he did not stomp down. It wasn't mercy. It was because, as he lifted his foot, breaking his balance, a terrifying chakra burst behind him. Roar! A column of ferocious, evil chakra shot forth. Through the half-awakened Tensigen, Yudo saw the density of this chakra. In the distance, Killer Bee's body was covered in blood-red chakra, 5 tails whipping up a storm. His mouth opened unnaturally wide, releasing a devastating tailed beast bomb. Rumble! The tailed beast bomb scorched the earth, forest, and lake, with the air vibrating in a mournful howl. Yudo's pale blue eyes narrowed as he reached out with his left hand, intercepting the tailed beast bomb without flinching. The expected massive impact didn't happen. The powerful tailed beast bomb deflated like a balloon, vanishing with a hiss. Fuin Jutsu Absorption Seal. In mask mode, Yudo's eyes transformed into the half-awakened Tensigen, akin to a weakened version of true sage eyes, lacking absolute power and the ability to use the full range of 6 paths technique. However, even with limited strength, it surpassed an ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan. The Absorption Seal, a technique later used by the Preta Path, Madara Uchiha, and Obito Uchiha, was also mastered by Yudo in mask mode. Of course, due to the half-awakened Tensigen, the Absorption Seal had limitations. Yudo could only use it with his left hand and couldn't fully absorb chakra. The tailed beast bomb's immense power still leaked a bit, rampaging inside his body. Yudo remained calm, using his powerful eye technique to force it into a specific acupuncture point, condensing it into a cone for a surprise attack later. A demon's man, exciting. Kumo's 8-tailed boss, never frighting. Killer Bee rapped in his rough half-beast form voice, his comedic tone laced with brutality and menace. Aizen Sosuke, what terrifying power you hold! At that moment, Danzo Shimura's voice rang out. Konoha Shinobi stared at the man in the demon mask, many swallowing hard but not retreating. My intuition tells me your existence will bring pain to the village, and you have Konoha's be a Kugan. Fuguki used this opportunity to retreat, gasping heavily as he regrouped with the remaining Kiri shinobi. For various reasons, the elite shinobi of the three great villages temporarily formed an alliance. Kiri and Konoha had to protect their Kekkei Genkai, while Kumo reluctantly sided with them, fearing the demon-like man would turn on them after defeating Kiri and Konoha. They were in a situation where their survival was intertwined. The enemy was strong, but running was not an option. Facing him might offer a slight chance, but turning their backs on Aizen Sosuke was certain death. Meanwhile, various secret communication techniques were used to call for reinforcement. The top-tier forces of the three great nations hadn't arrived yet. It wasn't a dead end. Yudo tilted his head, manipulating gravitational and repulsive forces to break the necks of the Kagaya clan members he had initially thrown into the air, showing no interest in conversation, arrogant and dismissive. None of the shinobi felt disrespected. Even Killer Bee acknowledged the mysterious man as a true top-tier warrior. Yudo turned back, his mouth curving under the mask. Finally, I'm feeling like a major villain. Very well. Time to test the upper limits of mask mode. He sealed the newly acquired Kagaya corpses into a scroll, his pale blue eyes narrowing. Time left in mask mode 57 seconds. While using Fuinjutsu Absorption Seal to block Killer Bee's tailed beast ball, Yudo briefly considered a question. Should he run now? After showcasing the single-handed block of the tailed beast ball, the shinobi from the three great nations would definitely not dare to pursue him. If he withdrew immediately at that moment, there would be no obstacles. With the Shikatsumiyaku in hand and the combat ability of the mask mode tested in actual combat, and the name Aizen Sosuke spread, all of Yudo's goals had been achieved. A strategic retreat would be the wise choice. However, he dismissed this idea in less than a second. Creating a false identity is most important because it must be consistent. All actions and words must be highly unified, and the most taboo is contradiction. Yudo Hyuga must consider the big picture, act with propriety, unite his comrades, respect his elders, and prioritize the village's interests. Strategic retreat would be no big deal. But this approach wouldn't work for Aizen Sosuke. He is a ruthless character who gouged out Byakugan, killed someone with Shikatsumiyaku in front of the Kirigakure troops, teased the bounty station, and even looked down on the three great shinobi villages. Such a person, arrogant, radical, resolute, must have the aura of challenging the world alone. He could do anything, use schemes and plots, but when faced with direct provocation, he absolutely could not back down. Dare to bombard me with a tailed beast ball? The three great shinobi villages are united against me? Fine, you all have courage. Let's see if I can kill you all. 57th second. At this moment, the shinobi from the three great villages faced off against Yudo from three directions. Killer Bee, with 5 tails released, stood at the front line. This position was only suitable for the thick-skinned, tailed beast Jinchuriki. Behind the mask of the malevolent demon, the light blue half-awakened Tensigen glowed as Yudo Hyuga flexed his wrist, and the attractive and repulsive forces adhered to his feet in a peculiar rhythm. He hovered in the air again, this time not too far from the ground, stopping at 50 meters. Then, he lifted his right hand fiercely upwards, his eye power bursting forth, and the ground from all directions was lifted entirely. Tens of thousands of tons of rocks and soil were raised high, simultaneously smashing towards the three directions. Then kill. Yudo muttered softly, his voice so low that only he could hear it. Boom. Dust rose, and the powerful ninjutsu of the shinobi connected into a series, resisting the onslaught like a giant mountain, either by hard earth defense, water jutsu impact, or lightning jutsu breaking. Each village had different response method. They managed well, but inevitably, their originally tight formation showed flaws. Be careful! That guy is missin'. An alarmed scream pierced the night sky as a Hyuga shinobi shouted to alert his comrades. The veins around his eyes bulged, clearly using his Byakugan to its fullest extent. Such nice eyes. However, at that moment, behind him, a voice like a demon's sounded. Indeed, HYUGA are excellent collectibles. A massive force acted on the HYUGA shinobi, and without even a scream, he was crushed into a blood mist in an instant. Half-awakened Tensigen, twin serpent strangulation, the terrifying domain of entangled attractive and repulsive forces unfolded again. To prolong the time as much as possible, Yudo maintained the twin serpent strangulation's range within 3 meters in front of him. Blood flowers bloomed among the crowd. It was as if an invisible meat grinder had been placed on him. Yudo attached the repulsive force to his feet, moving at a speed even the 3-tomo Sharingan couldn't capture, rampaging through the gathered shinobi. Whether it was specially crafted ninja tools or the tempered bodies of the shinobi, they all crumbled instantly in the constriction field of the dual serpents, iron shattered, flesh torn. Even with powerful ninjutsu strikes, Yudo could resist with the Fuinjutsu absorption seal in his left palm. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the Konoha forces had perished. The power of the Sage Eye, even if incomplete, was sufficient for dimension-reducing strikes. Unless there was a master of Minato Namikaze's caliber, no one could stop him. After the first wave of slaughter, the density of the Konoha forces greatly diminished, making such killings less efficient. Yudo did not favor one side over the other, leaving the Konoha formation to crash into the Kirigakure troop. The tried-and-true dual serpents constrict claimed the lives of dozens more. Scatter! It was unclear who shouted first, but the shinobi began retreating, breaking their formation. They were humans, after all, and retreating was the best choice when faced with an unbeatable foe. However, even if they didn't retreat, Yudo didn't plan to continue the massacre. "There's one last one." He grinned, blasting into the air, and like a meteor, charged towards Killer Bee. This massacre, which claimed the lives of 87 elite shinobi, only took 5.3 seconds. The remaining time and chakra belonged to Killer Bee. Even in mask mode, Yudo would not underestimate the formidable Eight-Tails Jinchuriki. Roar. Killer Bee let out a great roar, the sound not only from his throat but also from the tailed beast sealed deep within his body. Bang! Bang! 2 more tails appeared. The violent chakra tore Killer Bee's skin, blood and malevolent chakra mixing into a crimson hue. His body and bones underwent great changes, and his already robust form swelled, horns growing like a bull's. 7-tailed partial transformation. Killer Bee, at 17, had been the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki for less than a year. Although his relationship with the Eight-Tails was the closest among previous Jinchuriki, he was not yet a perfect Jinchuriki and could not fully transform into the Eight-Tails Gyuki with a clear mind. However, 7 tails were enough. In this form, even his big brother would lose. Killer Bee thought this as he raised his head. And then, he saw a star. Yudo descended freely from high altitude, all his chakra and eye power pouring into his light blue eyes. His half-awakened Tensigen, an incomplete Sage Eye, possessed only 4 techniques. The first 2 were weakened versions of Bansho Tenin and Shinra Tensei, freely manipulated attraction and repulsion. Next was the Fuinjutsu absorption seal, constrained to his left palm. The last one was a new power. Each sage's eye had unique ocular techniques, such as Sasuke Uchiha's Ameno Tajikara and Kagaya Otsutsuki's Yamatsu Hirasaka. Embodying Yudo's unique will and spirit, he also had a special ocular technique. Of course, due to the half-awakened Tensigen, this technique was also heavily truncated, the most severely truncated of all, leaving only half a name. But even so, this was Yudo HYUGA's most powerful ability and the limit of his mask mode. He ascended high into the sky, descended vertically, facing the massive and violent chakra on the ground, and softly uttered a word, Murakumo, / In the endless moonlit night, a pillar of light suddenly rose. All the shinobi present, even those with powerful vision like the Byakugan and Sharingan, could not clearly see what this technique was. They only knew that the light tore through the night, seemingly connecting heaven and earth. An indescribable force fell from the sky, like the thunder of a god of destruction. When the light faded, the area where Killer Bee stood was completely devastated. The eight-tails Jinchuriki lay 100 meters deep in the ground, his chest pierced through. The tailed beast sealed within him unleashed its vast chakra, desperately trying to maintain his faltering heartbeat. In the darkness, a man's voice suddenly echoed, thundering in everyone's ears. "Live on with your scars, and henceforth spread my name to the world. Tell everyone, the man who left you this scar is named Aizen Sosuke. Land of Lightning, interior Kumogakure is built atop towering mountains, boasting the highest average altitude among the 5 great shinobi villages. Shinobi undertake arduous journeys to descend the mountains for missions and supply runs, but as a village that values kenjutsu and taijutsu, they consider it a worthwhile endeavor. In a building inscribed with the large character for Lightning, a strong man tore a scroll in half and smashed the table. Splinters flew past his subordinates' faces, cutting their skin and drawing blood, but they didn't dare to move. Everyone in the room knew how terrifying this enraged man could be. 4 days. 4 whole days. He is still unconscious in the medical unit. If it weren't for the help of the tailed beast sealed within him, he'd be dead. And the one who defeated him and slaughtered our shinobi, all I know is the name Aizen Sosuke." A subordinate swallowed nervously. "Asama, the analysis of Aizen Sosuke's jutsu is in the report, along with predictions about his actions." "Useless. I can read." I roared furiously. "What I want to know is, where is that bastard? I want to tear out his heart. Send all shinobi out. Find him." "But, Asama," the subordinate hesitated before responding, "we are at war with other major nations." "Fool, are you defying?" "Enough, Aoi," a deep voice interrupted. I clenched his fists, instinctively wanting to retort, but he knew better. When his father called him by his full name, it was best not to argue. Otherwise, even as the primary heir to the Reikage, he would be severely punished. The third Reikage stood up, his massive frame and long yellow hair flowing to his waist, exuding powerful charisma. "Aoi, no one wants to see their comrades killed. Both the Land of Lightning and our Yatsuki clan have a tradition of avenging blood debt. But never forget, you are my son, destined to inherit the name A." The position of Reikage is always passed from father to son or brother to brother, with the Yatsuki clan being the undisputed ruling family. I gritted his teeth. Despite his nearly 2-meter-tall, bear-like physique, he was not simple-minded. As the Reikage heir, he understood his father's words. The war had been raging for half a year, involving every nation and shinobi village. Everyone had lost loved ones on the battlefield, and the war showed no signs of stopping. In this situation, Kumogakure couldn't be thrown into chaos by one rogue shinobi. But I wanted to argue for his partner. "No buts, Aoi," the third Reikage interrupted. "The village will issue a mission and bounty for Aizen Sosuke, and an elite team will be formed to track him down. But we can't spare the manpower for a full-scale hunt right now." He paused before continuing. "Tomorrow, we head back to the front lines. Our forces have been losing ground in our absence. One must not act impulsively for personal grudges and endanger the village." Kirigakure, shrouded in mist, Yagura Karatachi held a uniquely shaped club, listening to his subordinates report. Despite his childlike appearance with green hair and purple eyes, his demeanor was calm and imposing. Aizen Sosuke, age unknown, gender unknown, appearance unknown, origin unknown. Extremely proficient in taijutsu, capable of manipulating repulsive and attractive forces, and absorbing jutsu and chakra. He has no apparent weaknesses at any range and possesses extremely powerful jutsu. His jutsu's power is akin to a natural disaster, capable of piercing the 8-tails Jinchuriki in an instant. Bold and bloodthirsty, he seems to be overly arrogant, which might be a point we can exploit. 4 days ago, in the land of hot water, he killed 62 of our shinobi, including 7 Kagaya clan members, and heavily injured Fuguki Suikezen-sama, who won't be able to wield a sword for at least 2 months. We don't know his motives, but it seems he may be interested in shinobi with Kekkai Genkai. Yagura Karatachi listened silently, and after his subordinate finished, he asked, "Even the Byakugan of the Leaf can't see through his mask?" "Yes, Mizukage-sama," the shinobi replied respectfully. "This morning, we exchanged information with the Leaf and Kumogakure. The Byakugan can't see through that mask." "Heh!" Yagura chuckled, a hint of helplessness in his voice, to specifically where such a mask means many people recognize his real face. Konoha, Hokage Office Hiruzen Sarutobi looked helplessly at his old friend in front of his desk. "Danzo, stay in the hospital with all those injuries." "I'm not dying." Danzo Shimura, smelling of medicine, sat in his chair with a cane, his face grim. "Hiruzen, are we just going to let that guy go?" "Of course not. The wanted notice is being prepared. Konoha will form a special team to deal with this Aizen Sosuke." "A team? That guy is a real powerhouse. In my opinion, you need to send the Sannin or Minato Namikes, or better yet, go yourself. And then get ambushed by other villages?" Hiruzen took a drag on his pipe, the taste bitter on his tongue. A shinobi of that level isn't just some rogue. He either hails from a major nation or has a highly skilled sensei. Right now, the 5 great nations suspect each other of orchestrating this, intensifying the war. There are even rumors that he's a weapon trained by me and the Mizukage to eliminate uncooperative Kekkai Genkai clans. Ridiculous. The brief alliance between Konoha, Kirigakure, and Kumogakure ended that night. The camaraderie of that day was a fleeting act by Killer Bee, misunderstood by the world, much like the late White Fang of Konoha. In this world, shinobi are bound by chains of hatred. But if we get the chance, we should send more experts. Oh, by the way, Hiruzen seemed to remember something. Konoha has lost many Chunin and Jonin. If suitable, let's have the senior students in the academy graduate early. You are the Hokage, you decide. Also, here's a joint wanted notice issued by the 3 major nations. Review it and have it posted. Land of Rain, Nagato's hideout. Nagato looked at an intelligence scroll. Repulsive and attractive forces, sealing absorption. This ability sounds a lot like mine. A joint wanted notice by 3 nations, dead or alive. This person is extremely powerful, comparable to a natural disaster. It's advised not to engage, just report his whereabouts. Jutsu as powerful as a falling moon. Nickname is Moon God. Nagato paused, recalling the demigod of Amigakure, Hanzo of the Salamander. The red-haired young man frowned and handed the scroll back to Conan, as if it were burning his hands. He detested the word God. Tien. Instead of the moon god, the name should have been Tsukuyomi, but there are too many things named Tsukuyomi on Naruto, so I named it the English translation. Outside World Shikatsu Forest. In the central clearing of the endless swamp and giant forest, Yudo lay comfortably on a slug. This slug wasn't very large, just over 4 meters long, soft and tender, perfect for Yudo to lie on. He had changed into his usual attire, a white wide robe embroidered with the Senju and Hyuga clan crests, standard Jonin armor from Konoha, and his right arm wrapped with black Ryun steel. But unlike usual, Yudo's eyes were covered with white bandages. "Yudo-kun, does it still hurt?" The slug beneath him suddenly spoke, its voice gentle and affectionate. "It does," Yudo replied with a smile, pointing to the bandages covering his eyes. "If I wasn't afraid of losing reputation in front of others, I'd be screaming right now." "You can scream, Yudo-kun. I'm not others. I'm not even human." "That's just a figure of speech, Slug-sama. Humans are such complex beings, even their speech has so many nuances." The slug sighed, its tone a bit wistful. Yudo couldn't help but laugh. As the only one in the world, the slug lived for over 1,000 years, its wisdom no less than that of humans. It understood the rules and intricacies of the shinobi world very well, at least the main body, Slug Sage, did. However, the slugs split from the Slug Sage, apart from a drastic reduction in power and size, were far less wise and experienced. The slug beneath Yudo felt naive, easy to tease and deceive. By the way, Yudo-kun, the slug spoke again, you should use that technique less in the future. Yudo chuckled. I'll be careful. This was my first time using it, and I lacked experience, which is why I injured my eyes. Next time will be much better. Yudo-kun, the Byakugan is one of the 3 great dojutsu in the shinobi world. You must cherish your eyes. Yes, next time I'll control the flow of chakra better to minimize the technique's strain on my body and optic nerve. Although pain and exhaustion are unavoidable, at least I won't have to hide in Shikatsu Forest with bandages. Yudo sighed, recalling that night's incident with lingering fear. That night, he used his Kekkai Genkai to instantly defeat Killer Bee in his 7 Tails form. God's mask was incomplete, and the power of the sage's eye wasn't fully awakened. His unique dojutsu couldn't even reveal its full name, only managing to utter Murakumo /. But even at this weakened state, Yudo was shocked by the power of his Kekkai Genkai. It activated instantly, releasing a burst of power that even Killer Bee, with his speed, couldn't avoid. It felt like the moon god casting a spell of light, a power transcending physical limitations, affecting multiple dimensions. In Yudo's perspective, he merely glanced at Killer Bee, and the ground beneath them caved in. The Jinchuriki and the tailed beast inside him were both pierced through. The 8 Tails Gyuki fared better, being a chakra beast, but Killer Bee nearly died on the spot. Of course, the 8 Tails was weakened and restrained by seals, and Killer Bee fought in a semi-transformed state with only 7 tails. Together, they weren't as powerful as a fully transformed tailed beast. Yudo, always ruthless, saw Killer Bee unconscious and thought to finish him off. But as this thought formed, excruciating pain erupted deep in his eyes. It was a pain different from the activation of the cage bird seal, more akin to losing 30% of your body's water, or working non-stop for 3 days. It was extreme exhaustion and overextension. Yudo nearly collapsed on the spot. But he held on through sheer willpower, left a few harsh words, and used his last bit of strength to retreat, summoning the slug beneath him and muttering, "Take me inside," before passing out. Fortunately, the slug understood his intention, enveloped him in its body, and took him into Shikatsu Forest. Yudo slept for 50 hours straight. During this time, the slug sage used senjutsu to infuse his body with nutrients, preventing severe internal damage from overexertion. Eventually, he woke up and began using medical methods to recuperate. To protect his eyes, he applied medicinal compresses to care for his optic nerve. Now, 7 days had passed since that fierce battle at night. Yudo had recovered significantly, enough to crack a few jokes. Despite nearly being drained by his Kekkai Genkai, as the saying goes, practice makes perfect. Next time, Yudo was confident he could use the technique without collapsing. As he lay comfortably, the slug beneath him stirred again. Yudo-kun, will your absence for 7 days affect anything outside? It probably will, Yudo thought, remembering Minato was not around, and his superior Orochimaru was not very familiar with him. He had to be cautious. I plan to leave today. Slug-sama, can you tell me what's happened outside these past few days? After this incident, Yudo and the slug's relationship deepened. Before, the slug sage tolerated his antics but remained a passive observer, as long as he kept things discreet. But now, Yudo could rely on Shikatsu Forest for limited assistance. Yudo-kun, please wait a moment. Soon, a scroll was reverse summoned. Yudo thanked the slug politely and carefully read through it. He laughed at the first line. A highly dangerous man, Moon God Aizen Sosuke. Moon God. For the Uchiha and Hyuga clans, the moon was a special existence. Otsutsuki, Infinite Tsukuyomi Tensigen, all related to the moon. He quite liked the title. Yudo quickly finished reading the intel on his alias and focused on the war. Despite his interference, the war's course hadn't changed. The 5 great nations were still in chaos, and a small nation had even been destroyed during this time. 7 days without news, I need to make an appearance, Yudo thought, stretching lazily on the slug. He removed the bandages, revealing his pure white eyes. Oh, almost forgot. Before I leave, I need to move those Kaguya clan corpses to the secret base. Luckily, the slug preserved them, and there are no microorganisms in Shikatsu Forest. Otherwise, these bodies would have rotted by now. If that happened, I'd have to kill some more. After leaving the Shikatsu Forest, Yudo soaked Kaguya corpses in a medical tank. Instead of immediately experimenting, he headed to the surface and entered the land of frost. He had been absent for 7 days. To avoid drawing attention, Yudo needed to appear in public. As a battlefield free agent, returning to the Konoha camp without any accomplishments would not sit well with Orochimaru. Yudo spent 2 days ambushing and killing several small Kumo and Kirigakure teams, obtaining intel on their supply route. He then approached the Konoha command post and entered without much trouble. The atmosphere in the Konoha camp was strange. Yudo overheard discussions among the shinobi about the moon god. One individual had single-handedly defeated over 200 elite shinobi, killing more than 2/3 of them, annihilating the Kaguya clan reinforcements, and severely injuring the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki, Fuguki Suikazan, and Danzo Shimura. According to reports, there was never a moment of evenly matched battle. The man who brought death tore through the elite forces of 3 great nations in an instant, like a beast among sheep. Extremely dangerous, if encountered alone, flee immediately. This was the exact wording on the joint bounty issued by Konoha, Kirigakure, and Kumogakure. The bounty was more of a danger notice, asserting their strong stance while subtly warning their shinobi to avoid reckless heroics and to run if necessary. Konoha had lost dozens of shinobi that night, including a jonin, resulting in significant casualties. The camp's shinobi both feared and hated the suddenly emerged moon god. After listening to these conversations, Yudo reported his achievements and intel to the statistics team and then went to the command center to meet Orochimaru. Soon, Yudo received permission to enter the command center, led by a messenger shinobi. Orochimaru sat in his chair, his desk piled high with documents and scrolls. Besides handling these, he also had to meet Konoha's senior officials and rush to the front lines when battles intensified. During the Third Shinobi World War, Orochimaru, despite conducting human experiments, proved his worth as Konoha's commander, earning his reputation for remarkable military achievements. Objectively, the 4th Hokage position went to Minato Namikaze, and after his death, Hiruzen Sarutobi's restoration, Orochimaru's twice missed opportunities for the Hokage position and his subsequent loss of trust from his teacher could explain his disillusionment. "Commander," Yudo respectfully greeted, "I'm back." He briefly reported the events of the past 2 days to Orochimaru. Orochimaru nodded, his voice cold and raspy. "Yudo, you usually report every 5 days, but this time it's been 10 days. Did something happen?" "It's like this, Orochimaru-sama," Yudo explained his prepared story. "While hunting enemy forces, I heard about the moon god. I was not far from the battlefield and thought I might gather some information about him." "Oh? Any results?" "None, no clues at all." Orochimaru pondered. The reconnaissance team reported the same. They sensed traces of a summoning jutsu in the forest but couldn't identify the summon, so there's no lead. "Orochimaru-sama, with all due respect, is it wise to leave such a dangerous individual unchecked? The bounty states he took Byakugan and killed several Kaguya clan expert. His motives and origins are unknown. Will he really stop here? In the future?" Orochimaru finally looked up, scrutinizing Yudo with his golden snake-like eyes, creating immense pressure. Yudo calmly met his gaze, unflinching. Suddenly, Orochimaru sighed. The third Hokage once said that HYUGA is an exceptional shinobi with a broad perspective. It seems my teacher's judgment was spot on. Tsunade has a disciple to be proud of, known as the Lone Lion HYUGA. You are right, that masked man is dangerous. Not only do you and I think so, but the village's higher-ups also believe he won't stop. Strategies against him are already being formulated. That's for the third Hokage and Danzo to handle, not us. Relieved, Yudo said, That's good. I'd love to see what face is behind that mask. With loyal Orochimaru, Yudo knew that as long as he seemed to care for Konoha, he would be safe. Even after turning to the dark side, Orochimaru treated his subordinates well. Yudo was quite familiar with Minato and could joke and chat during reports, but with Orochimaru, he had nothing to say after his report. He took his leave, and before departing, Orochimaru informed him that he could reduce the frequency of his reports to allow him more time to disrupt the enemy in their rear lines. Yudo gladly accepted and left the Konoha camp, having spent less than an hour there. The news that Konoha is formulating strategies against Aizen Sosuke did not surprise him. After causing such a commotion, Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't remain indifferent, and other shinobi villages were likely preparing countermeasures. That's fine. It will allow Aizen Sosuke's identity to lie low for a while, giving me time to study the Shikatsumiyaku and stay under the radar. Thinking this, Yudo traversed the dense forest and, as usual, arrived at his secret underground base in the land of hot water. The Kagaya clan's corpses floated in preservation fluid. Besides Kagaya Marinosuke, the other bodies were well preserved, as Yudo had snapped their necks, avoiding damage to internal organs. He moved a corpse onto the operating table, rubbing his eyes while planning. My eyes still hurt. The strain from using the accompanying dojutsu hasn't fully recovered. During this time, I need to recuperate. I must continue capturing HYUGA clan members. I can now study the differences between HYUGA and Kagaya bloodlines. Same roots but entirely different Kekii Genkai. Ideally, I should obtain 2 Uchiha corpses for a 3-way comparison. Only one piece of God's mask remains. I need to replenish it, which is tricky. My cells are abundant, but HYUGA shinobi are limited. I must consider the extreme scenario of mask shortage. The mask mode is ultimately a mirage. My own training must not be neglected. I've nearly mastered the mutual multiplication explosive tags, and my strength seals storage is almost at its peak. Maybe it's time to complete the strength of 100 seal? Or perhaps a combination jutsu of mutual multiplication, explosive tags, and lion's fang bite. I also need to keep accumulating battle achievements, periodically appearing on the battlefield to hone myself. Sigh. There's so much to do. Time flies. When the first snowflake fell in the land of hot water, the ninja world was still soaked in blood. This year's snow came late. It had been winter for a long time before the snowflakes finally arrived. For shinobi wars, snowfall was beneficial. With their chakra, they didn't fear the cold. The thick snow could cover and even freeze corpses, reducing the likelihood of epidemic. From the early spring when the war broke out to the deep winter now, the war had been going on for nearly a year, with heavy losses on all sides. A few days ago, the 5 great nations released a classified document for internal reference, counting the number of dead shinobi and affected civilians. The numbers were grim. Each village had lost or severely injured around 3,000 shinobi, and the number of affected civilians was 20 times that. Both the economy and population suffered huge blows, and prosperity was no more. Last winter's joyful families might now be left with only old women and children depending on each other for survival. Of course, these statistics only applied to the 5 great nations and the 5 great shinobi villages. As for the small countries and minor shinobi villages scattered around, they no longer had the resources to conduct a population census. How many of them had died? Only the Sage of 6 Paths knew. At the beginning, Many young and passionate shinobi rushed to the battlefield, trying to make a name for their families and villages with their kunai, hoping to become as dazzling as the legendary Sannin. But as the war progressed, no matter how passionate one was, they eventually became numb. They either got killed, went with the flow, or seized the chance to become a superstar. But in a war, very few could transform into the last type. Most shinobi were just inconspicuous numbers in the war record. Of course, true geniuses always emerged, carrying the hopes of countless people and becoming the proud future of their villages. For example, the Yellow Flash Minato Namikaze, who had already made a name for himself, and though not as famous as Minato, yet not to be underestimated, was Lone Lion HYUGA, known by enemies as the strongest Byakugan user within 50 years of Konoha's establishment. In a snow-covered valley in the land of hot water, Ohu, a strange howl with a peculiar rhythm echoed through the valley. A burst of violent, evil chakra swept across the sky. Even if an ordinary shinobi stood beside it doing nothing, their skin would be torn apart. A four-tailed beast suddenly appeared on one side of the battlefield. Damn, it's the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki. When did he get here? Wasn't he supposed to be recovering? Fool. Stop thinking about that. Call for reinforcements. Defense team. Defense team. The Konoha shinobi looked at Killer Bee, wrapped in the tailed beast cloak, with chills running down their spines. But at this stage of the war, many squad leaders were seasoned veterans. They quickly organized a defense, attempting to withdraw from the valley. Cheers erupted from the Kumogakure side. Amid the shouts of "Lord Killer Bee is here!" the Jinchuriki opened his mouth wide, releasing a highly concentrated chakra ball. Battle Star Bright, Eight-Tails Might, oh what a sight! Though his rap was still offbeat and clumsy, sounding comical, the Konoha shinobi only felt death approaching. The ferocity of the high-density chakra was such that even the snowflakes in the air melted hundreds of meters away. Killer Bee, I remember telling you the first time we met that you really don't have a talent for being a rapper. At this moment, a clear voice came from afar. Immediately, a thunderous lion's roar erupted in the valley. Killer Bee shrieked and turned, launching a tailed beast bomb. Lions, few heard this word. The newcomer was too fast, and the sound was heavily distorted, exploding with a roaring boom that drowned out the original pronunciation. Fong Bite. 5 fingers clenched tightly, roaring furiously, boldly meeting the tailed beast bomb head-on. Boom. A massive shockwave erupted on one side of the valley, cracking the ground. Shinobi who were a bit too close were blown away, and the unlucky ones who hit the cliffs were knocked unconscious on the spot. Unlike that night when the ceiling absorption seal dissipated the tailed beast bomb, this time it was a direct clash. Ugh! Killer Bee retreated a few steps, the ferocious red-tailed beast cloak flickering, reflecting his unease. The boy with the lion's strength stopped, gazing at Killer Bee from a distance. He had a handsome face, wore a large white robe embroidered with the Hyuga and Senju clan emblems, with Konoha's standard Jonin armor over it, and his right arm was wrapped in black bandages. He was Lone Lion HYUGA. Killer Bee, should we continue? Or should we move somewhere else? There are many Konoha and Kumogakure shinobi here. Yudo retracted his arm guard and laughed lightly, pretending to be relaxed while secretly using medical ninjutsu to heal himself. Using Lion's Fong Bite with strength of 100 seal a chakra enhanced strength to directly counter the tailed beast bomb was indeed challenging. The destructive power of a Jinchuriki was truly... It seemed he needed to further enhance his attack power. He subtly moved his fingers, and an explosive tag with complex summoning chains quietly wrapped around his index finger. The next Lion's Fong Bite would carry infinite explosions. Killer Bee's tailed beast cloak, with its bull-like horns, twitched. The next moment, the red cloak vanished, revealing the Jinchuriki's true form. Yudo's eyes narrowed slightly, clicking his tongue in his mind. Killer Bee's outfit was unique. Instead of his usual revealing single shoulder shirt, He wore a white tight-fitting suit with a coat inscribed with medical symbols. Dozens of metal wires extended from his chest, flowing with green chakra unique to medical ninjutsu, visible through Yudo's Byakugan. Live with these injuries from now on. Spread my name to the world, telling everyone that the man who gave you this scar is named Aizen Sosuke. This statement had indeed become a reality. Murakumo Slash was not just a physical penetration, it was the power of the half-awakened Tensigen, acting on multiple layers, leaving scars and pain that couldn't be healed by normal means when it penetrated Killer Bee's body. To completely heal it, an equivalent level of ocular power was needed. Kumogakure had embedded complex medical instruments into Killer Bee's chest, constantly generating chakra to maintain his state, allowing him to jump around as usual. But this body had ultimately been destroyed by the immense ocular power of the half-awakened Tensigen. Killer Bee using only the four-tailed chakra cloak to fight Yudo was the best proof. Yudo felt an inexplicable sense of disappointment. Upon sensing the immense and violent chakra of the Eight Tails, he rushed over, hoping not only to gain battle merits and spread his fame, but also to test his ultimate combat abilities under normal conditions. With the strength of 100 Seal, Byakugan and Gentle Fist, explosive tags, and his self-created S-rank jutsu, no ordinary Jonin could pose a threat to Yudo. However, Killer Bee, whose physical condition had significantly deteriorated, couldn't exert the full power of a Jinchuriki and thus couldn't present a life-threatening challenge to him. "Let's call it a day, shall we? It's almost the new year," Yudo said, watching as Killer Bee retracted his tailed beast cloak. He knew Bee didn't want to fight anymore either. Yudo shrugged and added, "We have many injured to treat on our side, and so do you in Kumogakure. Let's leave it at that." Killer Bee looked at his comrades groaning in pain on the ground, and simply sheathed his sword. "In just a few days you've shown your grace. You're the Hyuga's pride, with the Byakugan as an ace." Yudo smiled but didn't reply. He just motioned for the Konoha ninjas to gradually withdraw from the valley. In the past few months, a saying had spread across the eastern battlefield of Konoha, whether among Kirigakure or Kumogakure. The young man named Yudo Hyuga is the strongest Byakugan user since Konoha's founding and the hope for the revival of the decaying Hyuga clan. Everyone knew this was the most childish and superficial attempt at sowing discord. Yudo could see it, intelligent shinobi could see it, and of course, Konoha's higher-ups and the Hyuga clan could see it too. In a truly united family, such attempts at sowing discord would only be a joke. Such shallow and direct flattery wouldn't even be worth discussing over tea, if the family was truly united. But Yudo didn't care. After Killer Bee and the Kumogakure shinobi withdrew, Yudo temporarily took command of the Konoha unit. Though it wasn't entirely proper, given his reputation as the lone lion, no one would object. He led the remaining ninjas through enemy lines and successfully reached Konoha's territory. "Keep heading west and you'll see the main camp. Of course, you don't need me to tell you that. You have good eyes," Yudo said, patting the shoulder of the leading Jonin. The Uchiha Jonin frowned uncomfortably, wanting to glare at Yudo out of pride but couldn't. Yudo's fame and long list of achievements were intimidating. Both Orochimaru and the Hokage had publicly praised Yudo several times. This boy's status in the Konoha camp far exceeded that of an ordinary Jonin. Even the Uchiha couldn't produce a genius to rival him at this time. "Got it," the Uchiha Jonin nodded, motioning for his subordinates to disappear into the forest. Before leaving, he glanced at Yudo, seemingly puzzled as to why he wasn't returning to the main camp with them. With the new year approaching, fierce conflicts would lessen, offering a rare holiday during the war. Many would return to camp to celebrate the new year. Yudo waved at the Uchiha Jonin, receiving a haughty humph in return. The boy felt content. Sometimes, the Uchiha with their red eyes were quite amusing. After the Konoha troops left, Yudo wandered to a specific valley. In a corner of the valley, he had dug a large hole filled with snow and ice, making it cold and dark. Yudo stripped off his clothes, sealing his Ryun steel ninja tools into a scroll. He removed his forehead protector, revealing a smooth forehead with not only the ugly caged bird curse mark, but also a purple rhombus mark. This was the strength of 100 seals, allowing him to fine-tune his body and accumulate chakra, which could be explosively unleashed in battle, making even ordinary strength capable of smashing cliffs and diverting rivers. Tsunade had been overjoyed to learn that her beloved disciple had completed the strength of 100 seals in just 10 months. She reportedly dragged Hiruzen Sarutobi to a village bar for an all-night celebration, then tricked the old man into gambling outside the village. When he sobered up, he furiously berated Tsunade in the Hokage's office, looking ready to tear her apart. Thinking of the blonde woman, Yudo's lips curled. The day he would return to Konoha and be taken by his sensei to train in the 100 Strength series of jutsu was drawing nearer. Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, Yudo entered the cold, dark ice hole, sealing the entrance with a large ice block. He sat cross-legged, assuming a meditative posture. Yudo's body quickly lost heat. Even for a strong shinobi, without using chakra, he couldn't resist the natural loss of heat. By pushing his body into a near-death state and entering complete stillness, he could feel the natural energy. This was an essential practice for the senjutsu of the Shikatsu forest lineage, a foundational technique. Indeed, Yudo was already learning senjutsu. Only he and the slug knew this. In the past 6 months since his 1-on-3 battle against the major shinobi villages, Yudo had accomplished much. His coordination with the slug had become more seamless. He killed, and the slug cleaned up, leaving no traces. 2 months ago, to help Yudo advance further, the slug sage began teaching him senjutsu. However, Yudo's progress was slow. He had yet to master it. Practicing senjutsu required the practitioner to have vast amounts of chakra. This personal power was necessary to resist the invasion of natural energy. In terms of senjutsu aptitude, the strongest in the ninja world were the Senju and Uzumaki clans, whose life force and chakra reserves were unmatched, giving them a natural advantage in senjutsu. Yudo and the slug estimated that it might take years to complete senjutsu. However, the branch family boy wasn't impatient. He had planned his time well. Training, going to the battlefield, conducting experiments, seeking spoils, and studying senjutsu. Every day was fully occupied. Though he hadn't mastered the first stage of Shikatsu forest senjutsu, stillness, Yudo could already go for short periods without eating. He sat in the ice cave, unaware of the passage of time. After a long while, he felt a warm, slippery sensation in front and behind him. Yudo opened his eyes. Gatsuyu-sama. Yudo-kun, it's time to wake up. A human-sized slug lay on him, speaking gently. It's been 4 days. If you don't eat soon, you'll be in danger. All right, thank you, Yudo said, patting the slug's tentacle with a smile. The new year had passed. It was now the beginning of Konoha year 57. Yudo was 14. He rested for a while, his first time meditating for so long, feeling physically exhausted but mentally refreshed. With some food, he would be at his peak. Yudo knew tonight was crucial, as important as developing the god's mask. Let's go, slug, Yudo said, his eyes burning with fervor, almost madly. We're going to have a baby. Land of hot water, underground secret base. The place had undergone significant expansion since the last time. 30 large medical breeding tanks were lined up, the first of which contained the corpse of HYUGA. As the only captured member of the main family, Yudo couldn't bear to juice him. Besides, he didn't need another Chunin corpse, so he kept it as a specimen. In addition to the breeding tanks, many expensive instruments had been added. Yudo had been stationed on this battlefield for a year. Even without significant kills, he had hunted many shinobi with Kekei Genkai, often scavenging their bodies. With more raw materials, Yudo's experiments increased. Thanks to the bombardment of information from his previous life, he had many peculiar ideas. Although most were impractical, a few were valuable. To avoid delaying his research, he acquired many instruments and chemical supplies, even securing restricted drugs from the battlefield medical team. Perverted serial killer, mad scientist, bastard rogue shinobi. Yuto often described himself this way to the slug. Now, he was about to add another title, Ethics Challenger. Chewing on jerky to regain strength, Yuto knew that the next task couldn't be taken lightly, despite his current extreme excitement. Yuto began to understand why Orochimaru was so obsessed with human experiments. Unveiling the secrets of Kekkai Genkai and ninjutsu bit by bit brought an indescribable sense of satisfaction and anticipation. In some ways, it was even more exhilarating than gaining power. Curiosity and ambition are vital for societal progress. After another hour, Yuto felt he had reached his optimal physical and mental state. He bit his fingertip and summoned a slug. Bang! The smoke cleared and the summoned creature's head hit the base's ceiling, its soft body pushing Yuto against the wall. Instruments and glass bottles clattered onto the table. Yuto-kun, the slug said pitifully, I'm too big. No problem. Why don't you go back and summon a smaller part of yourself? I can't. The slug sage put something in me that prevents me from shrinking. You can use the transformation jutsu. I don't know how. Yuto was taken aback, recalling that the toad, Gamabunta, also couldn't use the transformation jutsu and had borrowed Naruto's chakra to transform into a fox to fight Shikaku. Katsuyu-sama, I'll infuse the chakra for the transformation jutsu into you. Think of the human form you want to take. Okay, Yuto-kun. Bang. The transformation was instantaneous. A petite girl appeared in the underground base, wearing a blue and white kimono, with long blonde hair tied into twin tails. Yuto facepalmed. Katsuyu-sama, why did you transform into this form? Because you like blondes, Yuto-kun. Question mark. Yuto touched his nose. Well, I do admire Minato-senpai. You noticed, huh? Ha ha ha. Oblivious to Yuto's awkward laugh, the slug nodded. I also noticed you seem to like soft, plump. Stop. Let's get to business, Katsuyu-sama. Yuto covered her mouth. As expected, the split slug's mind and power were far less mature than the original. It spoke without considering the situation, Yuto thought. He gently patted his face, composed himself, and took out several black short rods. 2 fingers thick and palm-length, they seemed unremarkable. However, any sensory-type shinobi would notice that these rods had an incredibly high chakra conductivity, capable of transmitting chakra over great distances. In a few years, Nagato would be very familiar with these. These were the chakra black receivers used to control the 6 paths of pain. Not only Nagato but also Tobi, Madara, and Kagaya Otsutsuki had used them. Anyone with the Otsutsuki eyes could create chakra black receivers using yin-yang release. These rods required minimal effort and weren't tied to eye technique. In the original series, Tobi controlled the tailed beasts with just one Rinnegan, creating black receivers effortlessly. One Rinnegan and the half-awakened Tensegan in mask mode weren't much different in essence. Last month, after conceiving this shocking plan, Yuto refined it multiple times. He then sought help from the slug sage in Shikatsu Forest, completing all the details. He painfully used a god's mask, briefly regaining the half-awakened Tensegan, and created these black receivers. As he expected, he could infuse chakra into the rods even outside the mask mode. His spiritual essence remained unchanged, and the deepest imprint in his body couldn't be erased. The black receivers still recognized him as their master. Slug-sama, shall we begin? Yes. The slug, in the form of a blonde girl, opened her mouth wide, releasing a torrent. This torrent had no physical form. It entered the black receivers without leaking, likely due to the slug sage's pre-applied sage techniques for precise infusion. The invisible torrent was the slug sage's immense life force. This sage, who had lived for over 1,000 years, was trapped underground in Shikatsu Forest but was truly immortal. As long as the ninja world existed, the slug sage would continue to live. A fragment of this eternal life force was now being infused into the small slug, then transferred into the black receivers. After an unknown period, the blonde girl suddenly said, "Yudo-kun, it's almost done. 5 seconds left." Understanding, Yudo immediately put on a god's mask. His bloodline was restored, the power of the Otsutsuki clan returned to his body, the caged bird seal vanished, and the light blue, half-awakened Tensigen reappeared. Yudo squinted slightly. With his current ocular power, he could easily see that the slug had kept her promise. The life force infused into the black receivers was pure, without any mental imprint. He had no conflict of interest with the slug. Allies like this were invaluable. Yudo sighed in relief. He clasped his hands together, reaching peak mental focus. Bang! A large medical breeding tank exploded. The preserved item in the chemical solution was pulled by gravity towards the black receivers. It was a beautifully curved rib, harder than steel. As the life force infusion finished, the blonde girl vanished in a puff of white smoke. Yudo lowered his hands, merging all his mental and ocular power into a powerful needle. This needle connected the black receivers and the rib. He was about to create life, defying nature and morality. This was the authority of a sage. Rib bones and black rods were penetrated by a massive spiritual force and eye power, connecting them together. The rib was elegantly curved and crystal clear, resembling a crystal artwork at first glance. Yudo followed the method of extracting bloodline essence from the HYUGA to purify the Kagaya clan's bloodline and poured it all into one of Marinosuke Kagaya's ribs. Then, Yudo placed his own cells into the rib and carefully nurtured it. In essence, this was a rib with the power of the Shikatsumiyaku and the cells of Yudo. Over the past few months, Yudo had conducted numerous experiments on his cells, discovering that after being infused with the essence of the HYUGA, his cells would enter an activated state, possessing unique developmental potential. A transmigrator is the greatest variable in a world capable of breaking destiny. This is reflected not only in thoughts but also in the physical body. Once the cells are successfully activated, they can become a master key. Besides knowing the plot, this was Yudo's greatest reliance. The slug sage, who vaguely sensed this, also favored him because of this. Otherwise, even the immortal slug would not have offered its precious life force to help him. In the secret underground base, a series of astonishing changes were taking place. The black rod suddenly shattered into smoke, enveloping the slug sage's pure life force. Absorbing Yudo's eye power and spiritual strength in his masked form, it rushed into the rib. Shikatsumiyaku, Yudo's unique cells, spiritual will, eye power, the power of the black rod's yin-yang release, and the pure life force of the sage. All the forces and entities collided violently, undergoing a miraculous transformation. The pure life force condensed into a ball, encapsulating everything. It became a 1-meter diameter sphere, floating in the air, continuously expanding and contracting. It's done. Yudo's light blue eyes fixed on the sphere. Even with his current eye power, he couldn't discern all the changes. The transformation process took quite a while, exceeding 3 minutes. Even after the masked mode dissipated, the sphere remained suspended in the air. Yudo patiently waited, eager to witness the birth of this masterpiece. Finally, the sphere, mixed with various powers, remained motionless. A hazy gas broke through the outer shell. Crack, crack. The shell broke, revealing the life inside. A new life, created and led by Yudo. It actually worked. The branch family youth was slightly stunned. Without hesitation, he took off his wide robe and draped it over the new life. "I didn't expect you to be quite the gentleman." The new life chuckled. Her tone was somewhat indifferent, but her voice was clear and pleasant, like a yellow warbler. It was a girl. She had long white hair and looked quite beautiful, appearing to be about 5 or 6 years old. Without responding to the girl's words, Yudo sat on the ground, pinching his eyebrows and said, "It shouldn't be. Marinasook is male, I'm male, and the slug sage only provided a vast amount of pure life force. Why are you a girl?" The girl snorted. "The chakra ratio of the black rods used as the medium wasn't right, and your unique cells are too unique." "Is that so?" Yudo frustratedly pounded his head. "First time creating life, no experience. It's a matter of practice. The next one will be much better. But I didn't expect you to be so young. Your strength is also quite weak, probably only at the level of a chunin, right? Marinasook's level isn't high, only slightly stronger than a typical jonin. Coupled with the slug sage's life force not being particularly immense, I could only be born in the form of a child." The two chatted casually, like siblings, like father and daughter, but more like one person's soliloquy. This girl was the Shikatsumiyaku clone created by Yudo. In essence, the girl was a part of Yudo, no different from a finger, except that this finger had detached from the main body, possessed the power of the Shikatsumiyaku, and took the form of a white-haired girl. Of course, she also had Yudo's memories and her own independent emotions and thoughts, but she was ultimately not a naturally born life, but a product of Yudo's will. Her greatest aspiration was to help the main body complete the plan. Their relationship was very much like that of Kagaya Otsutsuki and Black Zetsu. The girl noticed Yudo's depression and laughed. "What's wrong? Feeling miscalculated?" "Yes," Yudo admitted openly, with nothing to hide in front of his clone. "Originally, I intended to create a clone with top-tier Shikatsumiyaku power, and then devour it to complete my Otsutsuki bloodline. You know, with just my cells, I could only cultivate God's mask. So, after much thought, creating 4 different clones and merging with them when they reached the pinnacle of their respective bloodlines seemed like the most reliable plan. Senju Uzumaki Uchiha Kagaya. 4 clones, 4 different bloodlines and powers, plus me, the HYUGA, that sums up the Otsutsuki in the shinobi world. I will devour you 4 to achieve the most complete Otsutsuki blood, obtain the full Tensigen, and break free from the caged bird. That's the plan." Yudo smiled wryly. "But your current strength is so weak, clearly not meeting the devouring conditions. Give me some time." The girl shrugged. "Let me grow for another 10 years. I have confidence in reaching a high level of the Shikatsumiyaku, so you can devour me then. Meanwhile, you can create other clones." Yudo thought for a moment and agreed. "That's true. Even if I create the other clones, they can't instantly possess top-tier bloodline power. They all need to grow," the girl reminded. "But remember, to shorten the growth time, the source cells of the bloodline must be as powerful and pure as possible. For the Uzumaki, Nagato is best, Kushina is the second choice, and Karen is the last resort." Yudo and the girl discussed their next steps. Finally, Yudo clapped his hands and looked at the white-haired girl. "You're too young. Letting you grow alone outside has a high chance of dying young. I'll place you in Konoha. The village is safer than outside." "All right." The girl nodded. "To the outside world, you can say I'm an orphan with a Kekii Genkai that you found. Such things are common in times of chaos. Fortunately, my appearance isn't typically Kagaya clan, so Konoha will think I'm a mixed-blood lucky child." "Good idea. It seems I need to find an opportunity to report your existence to Orochimaru and the others." "Oh right." Yudo suddenly remembered something. "Let's give you a name. Do you want to take the surname Kagaya?" The girl thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No, let's change it. How about Hatano? My past life's favorite." Hey, don't say such greasy old man lines with a lowly face. My main body isn't that perverted." Yudo laughed. "Let's go with Ruri." "Okay, Ruri and what?" "Ruri. Mochizuki. Main body. There's something I've wanted to say. Your naming skills aren't even 1/10th of your training talent. That lion's fang bite is horribly named. Your mouth is really sharp. Aren't we the same? Hee. Yudo-sama, you're back. Yudo-sama, your military merit record has been updated. Oh, by the way, according to the normal rotation, you're due to return to the village this month. Do you have any suggestions regarding the schedule? Yudo-senpai, Orochimaru-sama is waiting for you at the command post. But this girl... Sure, of course. Upon his return to the Konoha camp, Yudo was met with respectful gazes and treatment from everyone. Reputation is a powerful weapon. Over the past year, Yudo, known as the Lone Lion, had achieved great feats for the village, becoming a symbol. Although his position remained that of a battlefield free agent, his status was significantly elevated. Ordinary shinobi addressed him with sama or senpai. Even bringing a young girl to the command post of the troop leader wouldn't raise any objections. This was the privilege of a war hero. In the central building of Konoha's camp, Orochimaru looked up and scrutinized the two people entering. Yuto-kun, you've worked hard recently. I heard you repelled the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki and saved many lives. Yuto bowed slightly and replied with a light laugh. Commander-sama, the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki's body has not been the same since being injured by the moon god. I merely took advantage of the situation. You possess the humility taught by the Hyuga clan. This is good, Yuto-kun. A shinobi must always remain cautious, Orochimaru said, pausing, his golden eyes reflecting the image of the white-haired girl. He keenly detected the peculiar aura emanating from her. Orochimaru-sama, Yudo said, patting the girl's head. This child. I found her in a small village within Frost Country. Her parents were killed by invading Kirigakure shinobi. Yudo-kun, this girl is very unusual. As expected of you, Commander, Yudo praised effortlessly. She's called Ruri Mochizuki. Well, seeing is believing. Ruri, demonstrate by attacking me. As soon as the words were spoken, Ruri's wrist sprouted a bone spike. With speed and strength far beyond her age, she struck towards Yudo's waist. Boom! Yudo's right arm, reinforced with Ryun steel, collided with the bone spike, the shockwave blowing all the papers off the desk. It was clear that the girl's foot had created a shallow pit on the floor. The Shikatsumiyaku had always been a top-tier close combat Kekii Genkai. The robust bones not only endowed the Kagaya clan with unique ninjutsu, but also granted them naturally powerful physique. Orochimaru waved away the guards who had rushed in and walked over to Ruri Mochizuki, his eyes intense. Little girl, do you remember your parents? Ruri withdrew the bone spike, shook her head, and held Yudo's hand, her small face showing just the right amount of nervousness. Such natural talent for acting was something both the main body and the clone excelled at. Orochimaru was not offended and even smiled, apparently accustomed to such expressions. What little girl wouldn't be scared of a creepy snake-eyed man? The fact that she trusted Yudo was quite telling. Orochimaru thought this as he looked at the branch house youth. Yudo was prepared for this. Orochimaru-sama, Ruri possesses the Shikatsumiyaku. When I found her, she was using her innate abilities to steal food. After some inquiries, I learned her parents were. Orochimaru nodded, not probing further. Kekii Genkai spreading to outsiders was not uncommon in any village. As for her deceased parents, whether they were adoptive or defected Kirigakure shinobi, it was impossible to verify. Very well, Yudo-kun, you've done excellently. Orochimaru praised twice. You've brought a precious asset to the village. This is a tremendous achievement. His words were true. The wars between nations and shinobi villages were essentially about resource acquisition. In the shinobi world, what is the most precious resource? Not land or money, but people, those with the potential to become excellent shinobi. Kekii Genkai made individuals inherently superior to ordinary people, often becoming competent chunin with just a bit of training. At Ruri's age, her worldview was just forming. If brought back to the village and trained, she would become a loyal Konoha shinobi. The power of the Shikatsumiyaku in her bloodline could take root in the land of fire. Perhaps many years later, Konoha would boast a renowned Mochizuki clan. As for the possibility of her being a spy, it wasn't impossible but highly improbable, almost negligible. Sending a clan's Kekkai Genkai to an enemy village, even with ulterior motives, would be a foolish move that Kirigakure would never make. Yudo, you've done very well, Orochimaru repeated, refraining from further comments in front of Ruri, and said, I'll inform the village about this immediately. Oh, and you're due to rotate back soon, right? Yes, Commander-sama. During wartime, most of the village's elite shinobi would fight on the front lines. However, no matter how intense the front-line battles were, the village couldn't be left unguarded. Besides the highest commander, other elites would rotate back to protect civilians and take a break. Orochimaru calculated the time and said, You should head back tonight, taking Ruri Mochizuki with you. The battlefield is dangerous, and she seems very attached to you. Yudo accepted the order. Yes, Commander-sama. Orochimaru, being meticulous and decisive, immediately arranged for someone to handle the reception in the village. After giving careful instructions, he allowed Yudo to leave with Ruri. As they left the camp, Yudo picked up the girl and dashed towards the secret base. This was unexpected. I didn't think Orochimaru would be so decisive. Yudo frowned while running. If we're leaving tonight, I need to pack up the experimental materials from the base. God's mask must be taken along, and some things need to be destroyed. Who knows when I'll return next, and there might be unforeseen mutations. Then why are you carrying me? To help me organize things. The time is too short. I might not manage alone. Yudo smiled. Once we're in the village, I might be busy for a while. What do you plan to do? Enroll in the Shinobi Academy? Or find a sensei directly? What? Don't want to be a babysitter? No. It's just that I think, while in the village, many things might happen, and taking you along might be inconvenient. Humph, Ruri frowned. Really? In front of me, there's no need to pretend. You want to obtain the cells of the Uzumaki or Senju, right? Be careful, the village is a dragon's lair. One wrong move, and the lone lion will become a dead lion. This is just a temporary plan, and I will bring God's mask, Yudo replied softly. The moon god won't stay dormant for long. The white tuft of hair on Ruri Mochizuki's head moved slightly. After a long pause, she said without holding back, Wherever you are, the moon god will follow. You're making it too obvious. And do you really think you're invincible in the masked mode? Wow, my brother, how impressive. Can you bring down the moon for me? Yudo, this clone's personality is nothing like mine. After nearly a year, Yudo finally embarked on the road back to Konoha. The Land of Fire, being one of the most powerful countries, managed to push the enemy's offensives back to the border. The flames of war never reached the interior, and the official roads and post stations were mostly intact. When they were 25 kilometers away from Konoha, the welcoming team arrived. They brought luxurious carriages and invited the returning shinobi onto them. Including the wounded, there were a total of 386 people, all arranged meticulously. Yudo was placed at the front of the convoy, the most dazzling position, naturally reserved for the war hero who had risen to fame. The convoy quickly headed towards Konoha. Before the sun had reached its highest point, Yudo could already see the welcoming crowd at the village gates. Hiruzen Sarutobi, dressed in his red and white Hokage robes, stood in the center of the crowd, smoking a pipe and smiling like a kind old neighbor. Flowers flew through the air, mixed with perfumed scarves, as villagers cheered to welcome the heroes returning from the battlefield. As the highest leader, Hiruzen naturally had to say a few words on such an occasion. Unlike his later years, he didn't drag on with long speeches but instead said a few pleasant words before disbanding the crowd and leading the shinobi to the Hokage building. Nearly 400 shinobi had withdrawn from the front lines. Those with important tasks had to report directly to Hiruzen, while the others, except for the wounded, would swap places with the shinobi stationed in Konoha. Those who had been resting in the village for some time would head to the battlefield, often taking with them newly graduated genin. Constant training, constant loss, and constant rotation. This was how the major shinobi villages maintained strong combat forces on the front lines. As the shining war star, Yudo was the first to meet Hiruzen. "Yudo-kun, you've become a shinobi capable of standing on your own," said the third Hokage as soon as he saw him. The branch family boy respectfully replied, "It's all thanks to the village and the clan's excellent teachings. Both Minato and Orochimaru have praised you multiple times," Hiruzen said, chuckling with his pipe. "Minato always speaks well of others, but Orochimaru is stingy with his praise. The frontline commanders and their deputies highly approve of you, Yudo-kun. Whether it's Hyuga's gem or Lone Lion, you deserve such accolades." Yudo bowed his head, listening intently. "I've reviewed your military achievements, far surpassing the average jonin. During the Second Shinobi World War, even Jiraiya and his peers didn't accumulate such merit. You've certainly given a lot for Konoha. For the time being, stay in the village." Hiruzen handed Yudo a scroll. "You've been too conspicuous. The enemy sees you as a thorn in their side." Anbu intercepted information from Kumogakure suggesting they plan to lure you out in the land of hot water, and the AB duo might be involved. Minato can escape even from a heavy siege with his flying thunder god, but Yudo-kun, it's better for you to avoid them in advance. After reading the scroll, Yudo returned it to Hiruzen. "Yes, Hokage-sama. While I'm in the village, is there any task for me? Originally, I intended to have you gain experience in Anbu," Hiruzen said, exhaling a smoke ring with a wry smile. "But your sensei mentioned that since you've successfully formed the strength of 100 seal, a series of jutsu training must commence. I'll assign you a lighter position, giving you ample time to train." "Thank you, Hokage-sama. Oh, by the way, Yudo-kun, Orochimaru reported that you adopted a young girl. She's outside." Yudo went out and brought in a white-haired girl, holding her hand. "Hokage-sama, this is Ruri Mochizuki. She has the Shikatsumiyaku Kekii Genkai." Hiruzen gently patted Ruri's head, smiling. "Good child, live in Konoha from now on. This will be your home." "Home?" Ruri looked up, her eyes shimmering like those of a fawn, as fragile as porcelain. "But Ruri doesn't have a home anymore. I'll never see my parents again." Such a young, pretty girl, looking so pitiful, was heart-wrenching. Hiruzen knelt down and spoke softly. "Little Ruri, don't worry about being alone. This village is called Konoha, where everyone can live equally. We're all leaves bathed in the sunlight, no distinctions between us, always one family. This world is ultimately nurtured by love, and people can understand each other." Ruri subtly squeezed Yudo's hand. Their hands were joined, and her action was so hidden that neither the nearby Hokage nor the guarding Yenbyu noticed. Even though she said nothing, the inherent bond between Yudo's main body and his clone allowed him to guess her thoughts. Does this old man really believe this? Is he having a stroke? Yudo struggled to maintain his seriousness, forcing himself not to laugh. Hiruzen's talk dragged on, mostly about the will of fire and bonds between comrades. By the time he sipped his tea with satisfaction, half an hour had passed. Sigh, apologies. Old age makes one verbose. I'm tired of my own talk. It's all right, Hokage-san. Ruri was even more tired, constantly maintaining an expression of admiration, respect, being enlightened by the great Hokage. Even now, she fought not to roll her eyes, diligently flattering. No one ever told me these things before. You know so much. The Hokage is such an amazing person? Then I want to be Hokage too. Ha ha ha. Hiruzen laughed heartily. Indeed, chatting with young people rejuvenates one. Yudo-kun, let's leave it at this for today. Many others are waiting outside. Yes, Hokage-sama, but about Ruri's residence. Let her stay at the Senju compound. Although Tsunade can be unreliable, she raised Shizune healthily. Plus, you staying there long-term can take care of her. Yudo obeyed and left, holding the girl's hand as they exited the Hokage building. They walked in silence. Both Yudo and his clone were cautious people who wouldn't casually talk in places where they could be eavesdropped on. They crossed many streets, arriving at the spacious Senju compound. Yudo, familiar with the place, walked into a particular courtyard. In a small yard with orange trees and bamboo, a blonde woman lay on a tatami mat. "Hey kid, you've grown taller and thinner." This was Tsunade's first words upon seeing him. "You've gotten taller than me." The blonde woman stood up, comparing her height to her disciple and finding that the boy was indeed 1 centimeter taller. In a few years, she would have to look up to him. Tsunade thought this as she tapped her forehead. Yudo understood her gesture and removed his forehead protector, revealing the caged bird seal and the strength of 100 seal at the center. The woman's fingertips gently touched the boy's brow. The chakra from her medical ninjutsu was warm, but her fingers felt cold. "You've never disappointed me," Tsunade said approvingly. "Forming the strength of 100 seal is quite useful. It not only adjusts your body and chakra pathways but also stores the chakra that is naturally consumed daily. This seal can serve as a foundation to unleash various powerful jutsu. Those who master this seal can even maintain a youthful appearance indefinitely." The blonde woman suddenly stopped, sighed, and squeezed Yudo's shoulder. Not understanding why his sensei sighed, Yudo smiled and pulled a young girl in front of him. "Sensei, you should know about Ruri. Hokage-sama said she should stay here temporarily. Can I find a room for her?" "Sure," Tsunade said with a cheerful pinch on the girl's cheek. "This little girl is still young. Let her stay with Shizune." "All right. Ruri, this lady is my teacher, Tsunade-sama." "Tsunade-sama." Ruri bowed and said nothing more. Her white hair was beautiful, but perhaps because of her thin lips, she seemed aloof and proud when silent, exuding an air that kept strangers at bay, unlike the sharp-tongued girl she was when alone with Yudo. Tsunade didn't mind. She had experienced 2 great wars and seen many life-and-death situations. She had seen many pitiful children who lost their parents and knew each had their own scars and temperaments, different from the children of Konoha. When Shizune returned, Yudo handed Ruri to her and no longer paid attention to his clones. Although the clone looked like a child, its mind was an exact copy of his, understanding the importance of situations. Moreover, Shizune had matured over the years, becoming more capable and reliable, making it easy for her to take care of a child. These Kaguya clones, as well as the future Uzumaki, Senju, and Uchiha clones, were seeds. Yudo planted them intending to devour them later, completely merging their bloodlines. He couldn't always be a babysitter watching over their growth. He had to consider the possibility of the devour plan failing. Even if he consumed the 4 clones, there was a chance he might not break through his bloodline limit. Although this possibility was slim, Yudo had to be mentally prepared. Thinking ahead about the consequences of failure was a villain's compulsory course. He had never stopped training. When all plans failed, at least he could carry out the most reckless plan. If his bloodline couldn't revert, he would kill all those who could control the caged bird seal, and the curse mark would naturally dissolve. In a world with supernatural energy like chakra, power is the source of a person's confidence. Returning to the village, Yudo's life remained routine. On the battlefield, he ambushed his companions and clan members, conducted experiments, killed enemy shinobi, and reported back to the main camp, a 4-point cycle. In the village, he trained new jutsu with Tsunade in the back mountain, occasionally visited the HYUGA compound, chatted with familiar people, and thought about his next plans before sleeping. His stable life was uneventful. He immersed himself in training, not daring to stir up trouble. As the Bone clone said, it was best to completely separate his identity as Yudo HYUGA from Aizen Sosuke. If wherever he went, the moon god caused chaos, people would eventually notice something was wrong. Furthermore, both Hashirama cells and Kushina's body tissue, were extremely difficult to obtain. The former was heavily guarded, and even Yudo didn't know where the first Hokage's grave was. The latter was the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. If the tailed beast rampaged, he would definitely die without a burial place. When the plan stalled, Yudo chose to train. At least his strength would increase solidly, not wasting time. 2 weeks after returning to the village, Yudo received his appointment from the Hokage Tower. His position was quite good, not the relatively arduous garrison duty, but as a medical captain at Konoha Hospital. Thanks to Tsunade's status and Yudo's performance in saving lives during the war, this high-ranking position fell to him. The benefits were plenty, but there wasn't much work. During wartime, the village's population was low. Frontline wounded were either sent to nearby field hospitals or died en route to Konoha. In a month, Yudo hardly had any task. As the medical captain, he specialized in difficult and urgent cases, leaving minor illnesses to the doctors. Thus, Yudo only needed to show up at work, give a few instructions, then sneak off to train with Tsunade, the head of Konoha Hospital. Clock in, leave work, get paid, and train with his beautiful superior. If this job were given to pre-transmigration Yudo, he would probably laugh himself awake. Such peaceful yet busy days passed by in a flash. When all the snow melted and trees sprouted new buds, Hiruzen called Yudo again. "Hokage-sama, you wanted to see me." "Yes, Yudo, sit." Hiruzen handed him a stack of files. "Take a good look. These will be your direct subordinates and students from now on." Yudo was slightly surprised. He had thought the third Hokage called him to return to the battlefield, but it turned out he was to become a team leader. At 14, I might be the youngest Jonin instructor in Konoha's history, Yudo thought as he looked through the files. The first photo was of Ruri. As expected, given their relationship and her Kekii Genkai, she was indeed suitable to be his student. Yudo smiled and looked at the second photo. The boy in the photo was very handsome, wearing a black short-sleeved shirt and smiling while making a seal towards the camera. "Shursui. Uchiha Shursui." Uchiha fastened his forehead protector, clasped his hands together, and bowed towards the photo on the table. In the photo frame was a picture of a young couple, both with black hair and black eyes, wearing clothes embroidered with the clan's fan emblem. They were smiling brightly, looking silly and happy. "Father, mother, I'm setting off." Shursui spoke softly, sheathed his short sword, and strapped it to his back. He had just turned 6 this year and had graduated from the Shinobi Academy. Whether within the Uchiha clan or at the academy, he was undoubtedly the top graduate of his class. Shursui is a child who possesses all the talents needed to be a shinobi. Whether as an Uchiha or a Konoha genin, he is undoubtedly a genius. This was the evaluation written by Shursui's academy teacher upon his graduation. Today was Shursui's first day meeting his guiding jonin. Although it was wartime and most genin were sent to the front lines, Konoha would give some leeway to those with potential, pairing them with strong jonin for training. Last night, Shursui was called by the clan leader and informed of this, along with the name of his new sensei. He was looking forward to meeting the teacher known as Lone Lion. After closing the door and leaving the clan compound, Shursui quickly arrived outside the village. He had received a letter from a slug last night with the meeting place and time. All he had to do was arrive on time. Shursui arrived at the meeting point half an hour early. It was a clearing in the forest, devoid of any weeds, evidently cleaned up earlier. In the center stood a thick wooden stake wrapped with ropes, its purpose unknown. Being the first to arrive, Shursui leaned against the wooden stake to rest. Before long, a boy in a gray coat and sunglasses appeared in his field of vision. "Oh, it's Shursui." The boy had long brown hair, and he wore large-toed sunglasses, giving him a mysterious look. Despite his odd appearance, his tone was unexpectedly calm and steady. "Funny how we were opponents during the graduation exam." "Muta, it's good to have you as a teammate." Shursui greeted with a smile. Muta Aburame, the only one in this year's class who could spar with Shursui, was a talented individual practicing the Aburame clan's insect control technique. They were schoolmates, and although they spent most of their time training within their respective clans, they were closer than mere acquaintances. They chatted casually as time quickly passed. 5 minutes before the meeting time, a girl slowly approached from a distance. Both Muta and Shursui looked at her with slight curiosity. The girl had beautiful long white hair, stood taller than most of her peers, and looked a bit aloof. Never seen her around the village, Shursui and Muta thought as they watched the girl walk over and lean casually against the stake. Ruri Mochizuki, she introduced herself, then fell silent. Shursui and Muta, not being the type to pester a girl with questions, left her alone. 5 minutes later, a puff of smoke appeared above the stake, and a fist-sized slug materialized. It spat out 2 bells and announced loudly, "The bell-grabbing competition starts now. Yuto-san will only meet those who successfully obtain a bell. Failures will be expelled from the team. He is waiting on the other side of the forest." The slug vanished, and the 2 bells fell onto the stake. "Humph, what a mischievous person." Ruri shrugged, grabbed both bells, and with a powerful leap, disappeared into the forest. Muta was taken aback, so fast. Without further ado, he also left the clearing, pursuing her. In a burst of speed, Muta stealthily formed a hand seal, and dozens of black insects emerged from his body, scattering swiftly. "Found her, she's so fast?" Muta marveled, chasing after her guided by his insects. Seal. As soon as he was within range to use his technique, Muta directed his insects to attack the girl. Although Ruri could easily swat away the insects, they nonetheless slowed her down. "Hold on a second, Miss Mochizuki." Muta caught up to her. "How about giving me one of the bells?" "Sure." Ruri flicked a bell. "Come and take it. One for each of us, isn't that fair?" "Not at all." Ruri's tone was calm. "The HYUGA is powerful, but I think I can take you on." "Then why did you take both?" "If he had come after me, I would have given them. Since you couldn't wait, I'll deal with you first." Muta's eyebrows twitched in frustration. Even though Shursui always overshadowed him at school, Muta was also a talented shinobi. Ruri's blatant disregard ignited his anger. Muta extended his fingers, and a green insect emerged from his flesh. Ruri smirked, her arm flicking to reveal sharp, white bone spikes tearing through her elbow. The green insect fluttered, and the bone blade glinted coldly as they simultaneously attacked, ignoring the bells. However, neither the insect nor the bone blade reached their target. "I said." A handsome boy with short hair suddenly appeared, interposing himself between them, his ninja sword blocking Ruri's bone blade while his single Tomo Sharingan controlled Muta with Genjutsu. He was fast, but not with the direct ferocity of Yuto's lightning speed charge, nor the ethereal grace of Minato's space-time teleportation, but swift and sharp like a gust of wind. I said, "Can we sit down and talk this out?" Shursui sighed, deactivating his Genjutsu and pushing away Ruri's bone blade. He rubbed his wrist, marveling at the strength and speed of the white-haired girl, and said helplessly, "Muta, Miss Mochizuki, let's head to the forest's edge together. Maybe that's the way for all 3 of us to pass the test." "Easy for you to say." Ruri stared at the boy. "What if he fails us all?" Muta remained silent, evidently sharing Ruri's skepticism. In Konoha, many unlucky ones failed their guiding Jonin's test every year. "It doesn't matter." Shursui laughed cheerfully, untying the bells he had snatched earlier and tossing them to the other 2. "Here, you take the bells." Even at his age, Shursui understood the meaning of sacrifice. The previously tense boy and girl fell silent. Ruri toyed with the bell for a moment before suddenly giggling and tossing it back to Shursui. A true gentleman wouldn't let a lady carry the burden. With a jingle, Muta also handed the bell back to Shursui. "If our clan leader found out that I passed while you failed, especially in this manner, believe me, my fate would be worse than failing." Shursui stared blankly at the two bells in his hand, momentarily at a loss for words. Clap, clap, clap. Just then, a slow clapping sound echoed from above. Shursui looked up towards the sound. A young shinobi lounged lazily on a tree canopy, dressed in a loose white robe and black bandages. Despite his relaxed posture, there wasn't a single flaw under the scrutiny of the Sharingan. Very strong, extremely strong, Shursui thought, and at the same time, he heard Yudo's first words. Shursui Uchiha, with those eyes, how far into the future can you see? Yudo Hyuga, the lone lion of the Hyuga clan, is the most outstanding genius of the Hyuga family, a disciple of one of the three Sannin, Lady Tsunade, and also my sensei. Shursui Uchiha sheathed his shinobi blade, his eyes slowly returning to their black color. Yudo-sensei. His tone was very respectful. The great clans had specialized people responsible for teaching etiquette. Although the Uchiha clan always had a high opinion of themselves, they often understood the rules better than shinobi from civilian background. Knowing how to face teachers and elders was a compulsory course for Uchiha boys and girls. Shursui thought for a while and then bowed his head, saying, "I'm sorry, sensei. I don't understand what you mean." Yudo looked at the boy's pure black eyes and laughed lightly. "Why did you share the bell with your teammates? If they pass and you are eliminated many years later, when you look back at everything that happened today, will you truly feel happy from the bottom of your heart? Have you really thought through what you gain and what you might lose? Shursui, is the future where you are killed truly the best future? You are a genius, but in this era, geniuses die in unknown corners every day. Being eliminated and then sent to the battlefield, you have a high chance of dying. Because of your sacrifice, the strong die young and the weak survive. Shursui, in the moment you handed over the bell, did you see such a future in your eyes? Now, I ask you, which future does the village need?" The handsome Uchiha boy was stunned, lowering his head, carefully pondering Yudo's words. Sometimes, sacrifices are meaningless. Yudo's Byakugan reflected Shursui's face. "You are a very talented boy. The body flicker technique you used just now was really fast, far beyond the scope of a genin. But an excellent shinobi is one who can make the right decision in an instant, even if that decision is not understood by others. You and I," Yudo said, pointing to his own eyes with a smile, "both have special eyes. What we can see should not be limited to the present." Shursui's eyes widened. Not to limit oneself to the shackles of being a mere tool, but to think about the future from a grander perspective. This was a way of thinking different from ordinary shinobi, focusing on the interests of everyone, deeply contemplating the rightness of one's actions. Shursui couldn't help but look up, gazing at his kind and gentle sensei. A feeling named admiration spread in the boy's heart. The name Lone Lion had become well known in the village over the past few months. Naturally, Shursui knew his sensei's deeds. In his heart, Yudo was an extremely outstanding shinobi. As a jonin of Konoha, he could make a name for himself on the battlefield, inflicting wounds on enemies. As a member of the Hyuga branch family, he also faithfully fulfilled his duties. A shinobi who does his actions for the family and the village is an exceptional person in Shursui's eyes. At just 6 years old, Shursui had already noticed the discord between the village and his clan. Although both sides tacitly avoided conflict during the war, through the clan's gossip, Shursui knew that an irreparable rift lay between the village and the Uchiha clan. His sensei was both an excellent jonin of the village and a loyal member of the Hyuga family. It was truly remarkable. The Uchiha boy felt that what he could learn from his sensei in the future would not be limited to just ninjutsu and taijutsu. Yudo did not favor anyone, turning to Muta Aburame, saying, "You did well. A few months ago, I performed a mission with Shibi-senpai, and the Aburame clan's secret techniques opened my eyes." "Shibi-senpai is your?" "He is my cousin." Muta hid his mouth in the high collar of his windbreaker, maintaining his mysterious demeanor. "Yudo-sensei, compared to my cousin, I am still very immature. You are too modest, Muta. Yuto nodded with his Byakugan. In the vision of my Byakugan, I saw a body with great potential for controlling insects. You are excellent, not only in terms of combat power but also because, in your rage, you realized your opponent was a fellow villager and did not use your most lethal insects. Shibi-senpai is the same. His calm thinking and self-control are impressive. Finally, Yuto jumped down from the treetop, walked in front of the white-haired girl, and stroked his chin, saying, "Ruri, long time no see. In the Senju clan's land, I was busy training and had no time to manage you. The use of your Shikatsumiyaku is already very skilled. Why were you running with both bells?" Shursui and Muta looked at the two in surprise, realizing they had known each other for a long time. Moreover, Shikatsumiyaku? Wasn't that the unique Kekii Genkai of the Kagaya clan of Kirigakure? In front of outsiders, Ruri's acting was excellent. She smiled coldly and calmly said, "I wanted to try the parasitic insects and the Sharingan. I've always heard about them in the village but never experienced them firsthand. I felt it was a pity." That explanation fit her persona. Yuto laughed inwardly but frowned outwardly, saying, "Don't let the power of your Kekii Genkai influence you. The Kagaya are warlike, but the Mochizuki might have a different future." "Yes, sensei. By the way, Ruri, what do you think of the insect-controlling secret technique and the Sharingan?" "The former is very troublesome, and the latter." The white-haired girl paused and then said a sentence only Yuto fully understood. "They are indeed a pair of incredibly beautiful eyes." Yuto chuckled, gently tapping the foreheads of the three kids, and said warmly, "You three all pass. You are all excellent children. The insect-controlling secret technique, Shikatsumiyaku, and the Sharingan are either hereditary techniques or unique Kekii Genkai. Even if you went to the battlefield now, I believe you could survive and gain fame not less than mine. However, since the village has decided to form our team, it means Lord Hokage highly values you and wants to let three flowers grow a bit more before facing the storm. I can't interfere with your family's secret techniques and Kekii Genkai, but I also possess the Byakugan and have slightly deviated from the clan's traditional system. In developing these techniques, I have come up with my own little tricks. I will take you on missions and try to study new things during this process." Two boys and one girl stood side by side, looking up at the young shinobi. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the leaves, casting warmth and light on the four, linking them like chains. Like the cool night breeze when the divine tree descended on the earth 1,000 years ago, or the clear, trickling river where Hashirama and Madara met 70 years ago. At the beginning of the story, everything is so beautiful. I am your sensei and your superior. So I promise you, I will never abandon you. Just like today when grabbing the bells, a 4-person team cannot lack even one person. I announce." Yuto paused and then continued, "Team 9 is officially formed today." 3 months later, the cicadas buzzed, mingling with the noon sunlight, spreading through the lush forest. Behind a low shrub, a single crimson tomo slowly spun. Shursui Uchiha crouched low, his excellent dynamic vision etching everything before him into his mind. "Fast, but not as fast as me," Shursui observed his target, frowning slightly. "Killing is easy, but capturing unharmed, that's hard." He signaled to his two companions. 3 months together had fostered remarkable synergy among the clever boy and girl. Ruri Mochizuki and Muta Aburame quietly flanked the target, forming a perfect triangular encirclement. "Begin," Muta silently commanded. Nearly 100 tiny black insects emerged from his body, creating a disturbing buzzing noise under his control. The target's ears twitched instinctively. Seeing the aggressive swarm in the sky, it let out a howl and bolted. Swift as a thunderbolt, a flash of red light darted more than 10 meters away. "Knew your pig brain would only run forward," the girl sneered, punching the ground. A wall of pale bone pillars swiftly rose, blocking the path. Startled, the target skidded in the dirt, changing direction. But changing direction reduced its absolute speed. Shirsue's single Tomo Sharingan spun wildly. Using a high-level body flicker technique, he appeared in front of the target, arms open wide, and hugged it tightly. Haha, gotcha! Shirsue laughed heartily, his voice as cheerful as a mountain stream. A small red pig struggled in his arms for a while before giving up, snuggling into the boy's embrace with a resigned snort. D-rank mission, capture the runaway pet red pig unharmed, complete. Haha. Humph. The white-haired girl walked over, twisting the pig's ear threateningly. Tell your brothers and sisters you survived the attack of the Kagaya clan, Sharingan, and Aburame clan's secret technique. This is the highlight of your pig life. The red pig snorted, unclear if it understood. The ninja world was full of peculiar animals. A pig faster than a bird might just comprehend human speech. Let's go report to the client, Shirsue said, leading the way with the pig in his arms. Wait, Ruri Shirsue. Muta pointed to a bag beside a tree. There's some wild mushrooms and other delicacies. Let's take them to the Senju clan grounds and cook lunch for our sensei before reporting the mission. Unlike the C-rank escort mission last time, there's no rush for a D-rank mission. Ah, Ruri replied heartlessly, let sensei cook for himself. He's an adult. He can take care of himself. Wouldn't that be too pitiful? Muta adjusted his sunglasses. Yuto sensei's ninja talent is inversely proportional to his cooking skills. You have a point. Shirsue recalled their sensei's first meal, the infamous octopus banana miso soup. The best ninjas often blend creativity into their jutsu and cooking. Shirsue had convinced himself to finish the soup by imagining it as training. Let's go. It's 11:30. If we finish cooking by 12:30, we'll have time to report the mission and grab some ramen. When Yuto and Tsunade returned from the mountains, the small tatami table was already set with steaming food. Ah, it's those kids again, Tsunade said with a smile, sitting down and calling Yuto over. Come on, your students are more considerate than mine. Yuto touched his nose and sat across from his sensei. The food was delicious, likely prepared by Muta. Despite the eerie appearance of the Aburame clan, they were excellent homemakers. As they ate, Yuto and Tsunade chatted. Yuto, how are your students? Tsunade asked. They're great kids. I arranged for them to do one C-rank mission, followed by 3 D-rank missions. Every 10 days, I take them on a B-rank or even an A-rank mission. Isn't that too challenging? They're very talented, especially Shirsue. His talent surpasses mine at his age. Konoha's lone lion has a worthy successor, Tsunade teased. After a pause, she casually asked, Is Hayashi still pressuring you to return? Yes, Yuto said, his hand steady as he picked up his chopsticks. At my age, it's good to settle down. I heard that in the Warring States period, ninjas started having children at 15 or 16. Humph. Tsunade wanted to say more but couldn't find a suitable point of entry. It was a HYUGA family matter, despite being his sensei. It wasn't her place to interfere. She focused on her meal instead. Yuto silently smiled at the blonde woman, pushing her favorite grilled fish closer to her. Recently, Yuto's life had been calm. His intelligent and understanding students, responsible and beautiful sensei, and respectful subordinates at Konoha Hospital all contributed to his smooth training and teaching. He felt like a typical, normal transmigrator, born in Konoha, training diligently, waiting for Naruto's birth to fight for peace in the ninja world. Of course, even the best days have their annoyances. Hayashi Hyuga seemed to have gone mad over the past few months, constantly calling Yuto over to introduce him to potential brides within the clan. His arguments were irrefutable. Your parents died early. As clan leader, it's my duty to find you a partner so your bloodline and will can continue. At 14 and a half, a HYUGA youth should indeed be engaged. But engagement leads to marriage, and marriage to children. Yuto didn't hate children or marriage. He just couldn't bear the thought of his offspring being branded with a caged bird seal. The engagement matter was delayed repeatedly, with pressure from Hayashi mounting. Yudo knew it would be hard to resist unless a major event happened or he was assigned away from the village. In any case, he didn't want his children to be born slaves. With both pleasant days and annoying problems, Yudo felt like a normal teenager this summer. After lunch, Yudo didn't return to the mountains. He still had responsibilities at Konoha Hospital and couldn't be absent all day. After bidding farewell to Tsunade, he arrived at the hospital within minutes. Yudo intended to greet his colleagues as usual and leave, but unexpectedly, a sweating Chunin doctor grabbed his hand. "Captain Yudo, you're just in time. We have a batch of critically injured from the battlefield. We're overwhelmed. Could you?" "I can." Yudo looked at the boy being wheeled into the operating room and responded softly. The face, the age. He recognized him from the original story in his previous life. Yamato. His Hashirama cells were weak, far from enough for Yudo to complete his bloodline transformation. But Yamato was a key, an opportunity not to be missed, or a fuse that couldn't be ignored. Yudo closed his eyes, extended his hands, and allowed his subordinates to disinfect and equip him with medical gear. Then he walked into the emergency room, stepping out of the summer of Genjutsu, back into the bloody real world. Yudo pushed open the door and stepped out, just in time to encounter several masked Konoha shinobi. He calmly blocked the doorway and said, "Who are you?" "The patient needs rest." "We are members of the Yenbyu," said the man leading the group, who wore a dog-faced mask. "Umbu? I bet they're from Root," Yudo thought with a smirk, then said, "Even if you are a Yenbyu, you can't just barge into the ward. This child just returned from the battlefield. Can't whatever it is wait until he wakes up?" "It's like this," the Root member softened his tone. "Lone Lion, we are his comrades. We heard he encountered danger on the front lines and were worried, so we came to check on him." "Oh. Once the patient is transferred to a regular ward, you can visit anytime. But for now, he needs to be monitored in the emergency room for 2 hours, Yudo said as he closed the door. "Those are the rules, unless you have an order from the Hokage." He turned and walked away, not sparing the Root members another glance. It was forceful, but given his current status and position, such a tone was normal. Besides, this was the Konoha Hospital, and few would dare cause trouble here. Yudo returned to his private office, reclining in a wide chair, quietly formulating his plan. Yamato is probably around 8 years old now. No known parents, kidnapped by Orochimaru as a child, and subjected to the Hashirama cell transplantation experiment at a secret site. Out of 60 children, he was the sole survivor. Even Orochimaru deemed Yamato an ugly failure and discarded him. However, the young Yamato, with a strong will to survive, held on until Danzo Shimura found him and took him to be raised in Root, giving him the code name A. Those Root members' only goal in coming here was to ensure Yamato's would release Kekkai Genkai was not discovered. If Yamato's would release was found out, it would expose the human experiments involving Hashirama's cells, revealing Orochimaru's experimentation site and Danzo Shimura's plans, igniting a major crisis. Of course, as long as he didn't use would release, no one would suspect that the 8-year-old Yamato possessed the first Hokage's Kekkai Genkai. After all, many shinobi had both water and earth chakra natures, which wasn't unusual. Yamato couldn't possibly use would release while unconscious. Since the likelihood of discovery was extremely low, Root allowed Yamato to be sent to the hospital without taking any drastic actions. Unfortunately, Yudo was a transmigrator. Yamato, Hashirama Cell Experimentation Site. Yudo kept pondering these terms, his thoughts gradually becoming clear. He licked his lips, left his office, and exited the village, performing reverse summoning in a secluded forest. Yudo arrived once more in the lush yet lifeless Shikatsu forest. Slug Sage. He called the slug sage out respectfully. Is that you, Yudo? A rumbling sound emanated from deep underground, where a massive life form gazed at him from afar. What do you need my help with? Yudo grinned, looking quite radiant. Slug sage, I need something from someone's mind. The contents of the mind could either be memories or mental power. As Lone Lion, Yudo had the authority to request help from the Yamanaka clan for such a trivial matter. They wouldn't refuse. But coming to the slug sage implied, this is something that must remain hidden. Yudo-kun, you should learn a genjutsu, not just for intelligence and combat, but because practicing genjutsu will help you understand the brain and mental power better. You're right. However, I already have a backup plan for learning genjutsu. Very well. The slug sage remained silent for a moment. Shortly after, a slug no larger than a fist emerged from the ground. I've placed a genjutsu in this slug called Sage Art, Worm House. Place it inside the person, and you'll get what you want. Thank you, Sage. Yudo picked up the slug and hesitated. Is there anything I can do for you? You've helped me a lot since the Battle of the Land of Hot Water. There will come a day when I need you. You are an unceasing stream, the slug sage said, then fell silent. Yudo nodded respectfully and left the Shikatsu forest. Bubbles, bubbles. A boy opened his eyes, fearfully taking in his surroundings. He was soaking in a pungent chemical solution, wearing an old breathing apparatus. Through the cylindrical glass tank, he could see strange metal instruments outside. He knew this place well. This was his hell. He would die here, along with 59 others. His body would deteriorate, his organs fail, all his cells suffering from intense rejection, waiting for death in agony until thrown into a pit to be scavenged by vultures. No, this is a dream. The boy gasped. He had indeed endured all this, but now he had survived and been taken in by Lord Danzo. His code name was A. Suddenly, strength surged through his body, and he smashed the glass tank. Chemical solution enveloped him as he fell to the ground. Wood release. Wood hammer. The boy's arm transformed into a massive hammer. He charged forward, smashing into a wall just as he reached it. Bang! The wall collapsed, and the bright moonlight spilled onto the ground, revealing the distant lights of Konoha and the towering Hokage rock. Yes, that's right, this is a dream. I'm a root shinobi. I have power. The boy laughed heartily, running towards Konoha. This was the path away from death and nightmares. However, he didn't notice that the moon above was different, more animated, closely watching his every move. Rather than a full moon, it was more like a gigantic Byakugan. Yudo opened his eyes, rubbing his forehead in fatigue. Soon, the small slug carrying the sage's genjutsu emerged from the emergency room and discreetly came to Yudo's desk. Good work, the Byakugan user whispered, petting its antenna. Return to the sage with my thanks. Poof! White smoke billowed, and the slug vanished. Yudo closed his eyes and carefully recalled the path to the human experimentation lab, not too far from Konoha, making it convenient to transport supplies, but not too close to avoid easy discovery. Even the soil hardness and air humidity were perfect. A superb location orchestrated by Orochimaru. Truly worthy of being a veteran, Yudo muttered. Yudo knelt on the tatami mat, staring absent-mindedly at the steaming tea in his hands. Yudo, the voice of HYUGA rang out, tinged with dissatisfaction. Did you listen to everything I just said? Yes, Hayashi-sama, I understand, the bandage-wrapped boy muttered. But I still think I'm too young. Noticing the boy's attitude had softened compared to previous times, Hayashi seized the opportunity. Yudo-kun, we shinobi are ultimately human. As humans, we need friends and family. Getting married and having children is something you inevitably have to do. When I was your age, my fiancé was already chosen. Yudo blinked but remained silent. Hayashi thought the boy was wavering and continued. Your parents were also engaged around 15. As their blood inheritor, you should also start a family. This isn't just about you. All the family members do the same. Spreading our bloodline and passing down the Byakugan is our mission. Yudo Hyuga, you must follow this. It's the will of both the clan and the village. With both the gentle persuasion of an senior and the authority of a clan leader, Hayashi's words were skillfully delivered. Yudo set down his teacup and hesitated. Hiyashi-sama. You may leave now, Yudo-kun. Think carefully about what I've said today. Hayashi waved his hand, indicating the boy could go. As the Hyuga clan leader, Hayashi was adept at using words to pressure others. He knew the pressure he had placed on Yudo was immense. In a few days, whether Yudo was willing or not, the engagement would be set. In the branch family, where could a caged bird freely fly? Marriage with a wife and children. These were even stronger cages. Yudo left the clan leader's house and walked calmly outside. To be fair, with the increasing pressure from Hayashi, Yudo was indeed nearing his limit. After today's conversation, unless there was a major unforeseen event, the engagement would be arranged within a week. But Yudo knew a major event was certain to occur, and not just any event, but something incredibly significant. So, he didn't pay much heed to the recent conversation. After the drastic change erupted, Hayashi wouldn't have the time to bother with such trivial matters. As he walked towards the exit of the clan grounds, he coincidentally encountered Miko Hyuga. In the half-year he hadn't seen her, the girl had become much thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. She had transformed from a lively girl into a sickly beauty. Yudo suddenly felt a pang of pity. Malnutrition could lead to visual nerve diseases. Don't damage those eyes of yours. He had even prepared a pink-tinted glass jar for preserving her Byakugan. He was always meticulous, considering even posthumous care. Thinking to himself, should I dig them out early to prevent damage? Yudo outwardly remained calm and gentle. He stepped aside and nodded slightly. Miko-sama. Miko hummed in response, not sparing him a glance as she walked deeper into the clan grounds. Love in the shinobi world was very steadfast. Once mutual, it rarely shifted for life. Yudo sighed and moved away from the Hyuga buildings, heading to the rear mountain of the Senju clan territory. The rear mountain was deserted. He found large trees, reclined on a branch of a tree, and gently closed his eyes. Before any great battle, if possible, Yudo would find a quiet place to meditate. It had become his habit. As a transmigrator, knowing the plot was his unique advantage, allowing him to foresee events and seize opportunities. Thus, in the past years, he had tried to avoid altering the storyline. However, as his power grew, the scope of events he influenced widened, making changes to the plot inevitable. A bird flapping its wings might not stir any winds, but a dragon roaring in the sky could cause hurricanes and tsunamis. Great figures in the world could trigger endless chain reactions with a mere movement of their fingers. Yudo now had such influence, even if only for 3 minutes. The genjutsu granted by Slug Sage was incredibly potent. Even though Root had set up defensive jutsu in Yamato's brain, the power of the sage still infiltrated, revealing the path to Yudo. The path to the Hashirama Cell experiment point in Konoha. Orochimaru had stolen the first Hokage's cells and conducted human experiments there, with 59 child subjects dying, leaving only Yamato alive. Obtaining the Hashirama cells, kidnapping ordinary people and shinobi, acquiring enough medical equipment and supplies, and concealing all traces. Orochimaru couldn't have accomplished all this alone. He needed a skillful partner. Just like Yudo, who had the help of Slug Sage. That partner was undoubtedly Danzo Shimura. Although the original story briefly mentioned the Hashirama Cell experiment, hints like raising Yamato and later using Hashirama cells to balance the Sharingan's energy indicated Danzo and Orochimaru's close ties. The apprentice and high-ranking member of the Hokage stealing the founder of Konoha's corpse. This was an incident severe enough to shake the very foundation of Konoha. If not dealt with sternly, the will of fire that united Konoha would become a joke. Though in the original story, Orochimaru's human experiments were eventually exposed, leading him to become a rogue ninja. That was in Konoha's 51st year, 2 years from now. The most critical issue was that now, amidst the Shinobi World War, Orochimaru was a prominent frontline commander. Yudo couldn't help but feel sorry for Hiruzen. Punishing severely would affect the front lines. Sorry, Hiruzen. Yudo preemptively apologized. With him around, Hiruzen couldn't suppress it. Even the Branch family boy didn't know what future tonight's actions would bring. However, he had a reason to proceed. Orochimaru's experimental base might have unused Hashirama cells. Even if not, after the drastic change, Konoha would undoubtedly be chaotic, giving him more chances and time to steal from the village. Profiting amidst chaos was a fundamental skill for a villain. Such a sinister move to trap Orochimaru, Yudo would execute without hesitation, considering Orochimaru is a martyr for science. After an unknown period, a bright light shone on his eyelids. The boy took a deep breath and opened his pure white eyes. The night covered the vast earth like a massive stage. The moon had risen. Evening. Katsu Inazuka moved through the dense forest, the moonlight casting a cool glow on him. If someone else said, "The moonlight feels a bit cold," it might be considered poetic exaggeration, but Katsu could confidently tell others that the moonlight indeed carried a chill, the wind had a distinct scent, and the rustling leaves spoke in a language incomprehensible to others. As members of the strongest clan known for Ninkins, the Inazuka clan had distinctive features. Triangular marks on their cheeks, sharp canine teeth, and unrefined instincts and wildness that hadn't diminished. During the Warring States period before the establishment of the shinobi villages, enemy shinobi even derogatorily called them uncivilized half-beasts. Konoha wasn't very large in terms of land area, but the village had a barrier team guarding it, monitoring foreign chakra around the clock. However, as one of the world's most powerful military organizations, Konoha couldn't be confined to just its central area. From the village walls extending out to 10 kilometers, the area was under Konoha's absolute control. The village issued specific patrol missions to monitor this area. Though the patrol frequency wasn't high, and its actual usefulness was debatable, it was necessary for asserting sovereignty. No one was better suited for patrolling the forest at night than the Inazuka clan. Even without the terrifying eyesight of the Uchiha or Hyuga, the Inazuka's noses were exceptional, not to mention their most trusted partners. Tetsamaru. The night wind blew, and Katsu's voice was filled with joy could be heard. Tetsamaru. Slow down. Woof. Woof. A large lead gray dog raced through the dense forest, its strong limbs and shiny coat visible even at night. This was a Ninken with chakra. Though it couldn't speak, it had grown up with Katsu and shared a deep bond, allowing them to perform combination technique. They trusted each other to the core. However, the night's carefree run didn't last long. At some point, Tetsamaru suddenly bared its teeth and growled, "Grr, woof!" Katsu knew this was Tetsamaru's reaction to an unfamiliar scent. A stranger outside the village at night? The thought crossed Katsu's mind and he whispered, "Tetsamaru, let's check it out." Simultaneously, he sniffed hard, enhancing his sense of smell through his clan's secret technique. Katsu also caught the scent, a very peculiar human scent. After careful consideration, he decided to describe it as pure. The man and dog swiftly moved through the forest, approaching without knowing whether the person was a friend or foe, and lacking information and not reporting to the village seemed reckless. But being so close to Konoha, Katsu was confident he could create a commotion to attract the village's experts even if he had to fight. Could they instantly kill us? It would take at least 2 moves to subdue both of us. Shinobi lived their lives in the shadow of death. Seeking absolute safety was unrealistic. It would be better to go back and raise normal dogs. Before long, Katsu reached the source of the scent. Without the vision of the Hyuga or Uchiha, he could only see the stranger's appearance up close. Like a bucket of cold water, Katsu froze in place. In the moonlight, a man lazily leaned against a tree. He wore a black robe and a menacing Hanya mask. Though he sat casually, his gaze at Katsu was one of supreme disdain, as if looking down from the sky. The moon god, Aizen Sosuke. How could it be, this guy? Katsu's limbs went cold. Tetsamaru, an exceptionally intelligent ninken, sensed its owner's unprecedented fear and anxiety and uneasily whimpered, scratching the ground. The moon god's image had long circulated among the major shinobi villages. The Hanya mask had become his symbol. Konoha had collected battlefield information and survivor account. Led by the Nara clan, they compiled an analysis of this mysterious man's techniques and personality. He could manipulate repulsion and attraction, absorb chakra and ninjutsu, and wield a super-powerful attack capable of defeating a Jinchuriki in their Seven Tails form instantly. As for his personality, extremely arrogant, intolerant of provocation, domineering, fearless. The Nara clan's analysis report highlighted one particular incident. Why did the moon god attack Kumogakure's people? His original goal was likely to collect Kekkei Genkai, Byakugan and Shikatsu Miyaku. Kumogakure's shinobi were irrelevant to this, but during the final battle, the aftermath killed many shinobi, with Kumogakure suffering the most casualties. Moreover, in the end, facing the critically injured Killer Bee, the moon god didn't even bother to finish him off but left him to linger in humiliation. The man named Killer Bee was crushed and toyed with, both physically and mentally. The most likely reason for this behavior was that the Eight Tails Jinchuriki's attack provoked that terrifying man. Therefore, encountering him, if you weren't the target or didn't have a reason to stand your ground, flee. Run away immediately. Konoha's internal intelligence flashed through Katsu's mind. He shivered, pinched his thigh hard enough to nearly break the skin. He gritted his teeth and decisively turned around, presenting his vulnerable back to the Hanya-masked man, and fled. Tetsamaru followed suit, running for their lives. Katsu dropped to all fours, using the clan's unique four-legs techniques. His fastest speed technique. The night wind howled, carrying a chilling wail into his ears, but all he could hear was his and Tetsamaru's heavy breathing. Nothing else mattered. Finally, they reached Konoha's village gate. You're Inazuka Katsu. What's wrong? What happened? The Chunin guard at the gate was shocked. Pant. Katsu could barely breathe. He glanced back at the forest, feeling a mix of emotions. He really didn't act. Damn it, are you implying I'm not even worth something on your eyes? He bit his lip, shook off the chaotic thoughts, and grabbed the guard's arm. Aizen Sosuke is here, he said breathlessly. Take me to see the Hokage immediately. Hurry. In the forest, Yudo stretched and smiled. Luckily, that Inazuka was smart. If he had recklessly attacked, Yudo would have had to waste effort killing him. Using the god's mask wasn't worth it, and using gentle fist or chakra-enhanced strength might leave traces. The 3-minute mask mode had to be used wisely. Yudo patiently sat, calculating the time. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. By now, that Inazuka should have reported this to the top. Yudo thought, pulling out a precious mask. Hokage-sama. Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't open his eyes and remained lying on the bed. What's the matter? Lord, Moon God has appeared, just outside the village. No sooner had the Umbu finished speaking than the door was opened. Hiruzen had just fallen asleep. If he were an ordinary person of his age, he would have been bleary-eyed and sluggish. But he was different. As the professor of ninjutsu, who was still at the tail end of his prime, Hiruzen's physique hadn't deteriorated significantly yet. He stood at the doorway. Though not tall, he exuded a massive aura of oppression. The small old man who smoked a pipe during the day was gone, replaced by a war behemoth ready to pounce. The Umbu subordinate gulped and instinctively lowered his head. Who saw him? Returning to you, Hokage-sama, it was Katsu Inazuka. With his intuition and sense of smell, unless under a high-level genjutsu, he wouldn't mistake it. Hiruzen paused, then said softly, "Send an urgent message. As fast as possible, gather all the heads of the Konoha clans, the elder advisors, the Umbu captains, and Tsunade at the location of the barrier team." Yes. The Umbu disappeared. Hiruzen stood alone at the doorway, gazing distantly at the Hokage rock. Hiruzen. His elderly wife, Biwako Sarutobi, approached him from behind, concern evident in her voice. "Call Jiraiya or Orochimaru back. No need. The matters at the front lines are more important and—" Hiruzen turned and smiled at his wife. "I'm just old, not useless." He donned his battle gear. Barrier team. In a few minutes, one after another, the big names appeared here. Uchiha, Hyuga, Ino Shikacho, Koharu Yudatane, Tsunade. The barrier team members on duty dared not breathe loudly, pretending to focus on their work while sneaking glances at these high-ranking individuals. Soon, Hiruzen, dressed in his Hokage robe, entered. Shigeyoshi Yamanaka. He called out the name of the shinobi on duty. "Any unusual activity?" "Hokage-sama, nothing so far. Open the outer perimeter of the barrier. Don't just monitor inside the village." "Understood." Hiruzen, Koharu Yudatane frowned. "Expanding the barrier's monitoring range requires a massive amount of chakra. Are you sure they can handle it?" "Don't worry, Koharu," Hiruzen said calmly, but then his voice became serious as he addressed the room. "Outside the village, we've discovered Moon God's whereabouts." The atmosphere in the room froze. Before anyone could say anything, the barrier team shinobi shouted, "Hokage-sama, something's appeared, a strong source of chakra." At 2 o'clock from the village gate. On the spherical miniature barrier model, a jumping ripple continuously resonated, spreading wave after wave across the entire sphere. When a genin-level chakra passes through the barrier, it only causes tiny ripples. But now, a massive force, completely different from an ordinary shinobi's, appeared outside the village without any concealment. Such arrogance! What is he doing with this level of chakra reaction? Is he using that terrifying ninjutsu? Or something even more shocking? But no matter what, the man known as Moon God, who gouged out Byakugan and slaughtered Konoha shinobis, is an enemy. He wouldn't come here at night just to release chakra for fun. "Hayashi, Fugaku, take some of your clansmen and follow me. Tsunade, stay in the village. Ino Shikacho." Hiruzen quickly selected a group of people, leading a high-quality combat force out of the village while ensuring enough defense. Finally, the third Hokage gave a calm order. "If anything happens to me, everyone here should remember, for the fourth Hokage I favor Orochimaru to succeed." As Hiruzen said this, he sighed inwardly. It's a pity. If only it were 2 years later, Minato would have been. But luckily there's Orochimaru. He's more suited to be a leader than Jiraiya or Tsunade. Without hesitation, Hiruzen left the barrier team, and those selected followed. Various shinobi clans, the Umbu, and renowned Jonin all sent a portion of their forces out of the village with the Hokage. They ran through the night and quickly arrived at the place where the chakra had erupted. In fact, from a kilometer away, Hiruzen could see what was happening. A man wearing an Oni mask stood in the sky. Behind him, 2 invisible giant serpents intertwined, using repulsion and attraction to separate the soil and casually tear the underground rock layers. The forest, losing its soil, broke and fell in patches, the rising dust seemingly covering the moon. "Yo, good evening, everyone in Konoha." Yuto rested his chin on his hand, smiling at everyone. "Please do not disturb me." "Aizen Sosuke, what are you planning?" Hiruzen Sarutobi looked up at the mysterious man high above. "There's something I want beneath this land." "Does it concern Konoha?" "Of course, it does." "Then, there's nothing more to say." Hiruzen bit his fingertip and pressed it to the ground. A strong, 2-meter-tall monkey appeared, white-haired and bearded, staring coldly at Yuto. "Sarutobi, his chakra, TSK, it's terrifyingly strong." Sorry, every time I call you out, it's to face such troublesome opponents. Hiruzen used the summoning technique again, placing a giant shuriken on his back. He's an extremely dangerous man. In the name of the Hokage, I must kill him. In the next moment, he threw the giant shuriken. Ninjutsu, shuriken shadow clone technique. Boom, 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 boom. Thousands of giant shuriken appeared in the air, covering the sky, filling the space within 100 meters, each one capable of shattering rocks. Yudo's pale blue eyes narrowed. His ocular power surged, repulsion enveloping his body, blocking all the incoming shuriken. Boom! A long staff pierced through the air. As the shuriken were all blocked, it shot up from the ground, aiming for Yudo's chest. So fast! The Branch family boy's half-eye caught this vicious and cunning attack. He placed his hand on his chest, pressing the nearly 100-ton weapon, halting its advance. King of Monkeys, Enma, was an exceptionally strong and rare summon, not only capable of human speech but also able to perform ninjutsu, even transforming into the adamantine staff, freely changing its length. For a shinobi, intelligence is life. After Yudo's previous rampage, Hiruzen could formulate a countermeasure based on that information. By not using ninjutsu but first forcing him to use repulsion with the shuriken shadow clone technique, and then attacking with the adamantine staff, leveraging the difference in attack strength to disrupt Yudo's defense balance. At this moment, Hiruzen stepped on the adamantine staff, using it as a bridge to charge up, as fast as the lightning body flicker technique. Hand-to-hand combat. I can fly, you know. Yudo smirked, intending to distance himself again, but before he could move, two hands extended from the adamantine staff, gripping his wrist tightly. Secret technique. Enma's hands. Monkey. Yudo sneered coldly. An invisible force field formed around him, intertwining and repelling two massive forces, twisting even the air. Half-awakened Tensigen. Twin serpent strangulation. The Monkey King howled miserably. Despite its reputation as having an indestructible body, harder than steel, it couldn't withstand this terrifying pressure for even a second. Its muscular arms folded at 90 degrees, skin cracking inch by inch, blood splattering everywhere. Yudo lifted his foot, stepping on the adamantine staff, charging fearlessly towards Hiruzen. However, the Monkey King's bravery and sacrifice were meaningful. Although brief, it bought a fleeting opportunity. Hiruzen had already completed his hand signs. Fire style. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. A massive flame appeared, like a raging dragon, spewing from Hiruzen's mouth, splitting into three, attacking Yudo from the front, left, and right. Yudo didn't retreat but wrapped his legs in repulsive force, stomping hard on the adamantine staff, increasing his speed again, dodging the side flames, and raising his left hand to absorb the frontal fire dragon with Fuinjutsu Absorption Seal. In an instant, Yudo was in front of Hiruzen. The half-awakened Tensigen, although not as powerful as Shinra Tensei, was extremely precise, making it a deadly weapon in close combat. With the twin serpent strangulation, Yudo even dared to engage in hand-to-hand combat with Susanoo. Four gravity chains wrapped around Hiruzen's arms and legs, lifting him into the air, pulling him towards Yudo. At the same time, a sharp, spiral repulsive force spear roared at Yudo's fingertip. Gravity restraint and repulsive force strike, a perfect combination tested and proven countless times. Half-awakened Tensigen, twin serpent strike. The spear, formed of repulsive force, buzzed and vibrated. Yudo thrust it forward mercilessly towards Hiruzen's chest. Bang! A loud collision echoed in the night sky. At the critical moment, the adamantine staff split into a small version, blocking Hiruzen. However, the abundant repulsive force still burst from the spear's tip. The mini adamantine staff hit Hiruzen's chest, sending him flying with blood spewing from his mouth, breaking dozens of trees and carving a deep trench into the ground. Yudo's aggressive fighting style aimed to deliver a second strike, seeing Hiruzen already injured. Unexpectedly, the split adamantine staff was just the prelude. with the appearance of the first mini-staff, the main body, tens of meters long, fully split. Divided into 20 parts, it recombined into a solid prison, trapping Yudo inside. Secret technique: adamantine prison wall. At the same time, Yudo's perfect 360-degree vision captured 5 figures. It was Hiruzen and 4 shadow clones. Swallowing a mouthful of blood with difficulty, Hiruzen took a deep breath and murmured, "Your ability to absorb chakra and jutsu can only be used in one direction, right?" Yudo squinted, understanding Hiruzen's strategy. Half a year ago, when he absorbed Killer Bee's tailed beast bomb, he used his left hand. Tonight, Hiruzen's Fire Dragon Flame Bullet was not to harm but to test if Fuinjutsu Absorption Seal could indeed only be used with the left hand by attacking from 3 directions. For shinobi, information is life. Yudo sighed lightly, knowing he had underestimated Hiruzen. Without a Kekkei Genkai, yet mastering all Konoha's jutsu, using 7 chakra natures freely, with several forbidden techniques at his disposal, Hiruzen, without a doubt, is a powerful shinobi. Moreover, he isn't too old now, not yet suffering the consecutive blows of Minato's death and his student's betrayal, physically and mentally stronger than in the early stages of the plot. No wonder you bear the title Professor. Yudo clasped his hands, concentrating his ocular power. Hiruzen and his 4 shadow clones began forming hand signs simultaneously, each sequence and number different, and the chakra natures they released varied greatly. 5 directions, 5 different elemental jutsu, simultaneously bombarded the temporarily trapped Yudo. 5 elements. Grand linked bullet technique. Fire, lightning, water, earth, and wind jutsu harmonized perfectly, their power stacking layer by layer. Yudo raised his repulsive force to the maximum, exerting all his strength. The absolute power of the half-awakened Tensigen couldn't repel jutsu like Shinra Tensei, but it could still defend. Half-awakened Tensigen. Serpent's Guard. Boom. A massive shockwave exploded in the nighttime forest, leveling 100 meters around. Konoha's shinobi swallowed nervously, awaiting the battle's outcome. From beginning to end, it was Yudo and Hiruzen fighting fiercely. This wasn't due to Konoha shinobi's cowardice, but because they weren't qualified to intervene in such a high-level battle. Tsunade and Danzo were guarding the village. Hayashi and Fugaku could try to join, but the speed and frequency of Yudo and Hiruzen's jutsu were too fast for them to find an opening. As the dust settled, Hiruzen silently patted the adamantine staff, looking up. Under the night moon, the man wearing the Hanya mask stood tall in the air. His black robe was no longer neat, showing signs of lightning strikes and burns. But the man known as the Moon God still looked down arrogantly at the Konoha shinobi. One side was spitting blood, the other almost unharmed. Everyone knew that in the first round, the Moon God had the upper hand. "You are worthy of the Hokage title," Yudo said sincerely. Hiruzen didn't respond, wiping the blood from his mouth, preparing for another round of jutsu. The immense pressure between them made many Konoha shinobi's breaths quicken. They knew a super battle between 2 strong men was about to explode. Unexpectedly, the Moon God in the sky suddenly made a small sound. Behind him, the gravitational and repulsive force digging underground stopped. "I've found it, I'm quite happy. So tonight, consider it your lucky day," Yudo said, his laughter louder than usual. Though somewhat shameful, many Konoha shinobi couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. However, they didn't know that the domineering Moon God was also relieved internally. 3 minutes are almost up. It's not enough time to decide the battle with Hiruzen. Although I still have Murakumo Slash, he has Reaper Death Seal. Fortunately, Orochimaru's experimental base was found. Gravitational force like a snake pulled some things from underground. Yudo received them and flew away under everyone's gaze, coming and going as freely as entering his own home. After a moment of chaos, seeing the Moon God had left, Konoha shinobi organized a team to the dug-up underground. "What is so many plants?" So many bodies. My God, even children. Quick, notify the medical team. Best to call Lady Tsunade too. This seems to be Lord Orochimaru's. Amid the noise, Hiruzen and several Konoha high-ranking members and shinobi saw the full scope of this underground experimental base. Hiruzen's body swayed, an indescribable chill spreading in his heart. Facing a mysterious enemy hadn't shaken his will, but now he was deeply saddened and angry. In his memory, the intelligent and cute apprentice seemed completely unrecognizable. Orochimaru. It turns out that being a double agent is a highly technical job. HYUGA, constantly stirring things up, realized he couldn't completely control all the situations. For instance, tonight, Hiruzen Sarutobi's strength exceeded his expectations. His taijutsu, summoning jutsu, and combination ninjutsu were almost perfect, and he even probed out the crucial information that only the left hand can use the Fuinjutsu absorption seal. And when Yuto retrieved something from Orochimaru's lab and hurriedly stashed it away in the Shikatsu forest before rushing back to the Senju clan's territory, it took less than half an hour for an ANBU member with a monkey mask to show up. Hyuga-kun, the ANBU member said, "No other reason, I'm just here to understand the situation." Yuto, composed, handed him a cup of tea. "Have we met before?" "Ah, right, a year ago, after Master Shinosuke went missing, you led the investigation." The monkey-masked man was taken aback. "I didn't expect you to remember me." "I vividly recall the scene. Miss Miko almost killed me," Yuto said with a wry smile. "What do you need me to do?" "Just a routine inquiry, nothing to be nervous about. You are, after all, our Konoha's lone lion," the masked ENBU said, taking out a pen and a small ENBU notebook. 40 minutes ago, Lord Hokage initiated an emergency summons to deal with Aizen Sosuke, who suddenly approached the village. Because of the urgency, the emergency meeting only gathered Lady Tsunade, the clan heads, and the village advisors and elders. After that, the experts stationed in the village were divided into two groups. One followed the Hokage to meet the enemy outside the village, while the others stayed in the village to prevent being lured away. Yuto-kun, from that time until now, it seems no one has seen you. Can you tell me where you were and what you were doing? Of course, as I said at the beginning, this is just a routine inquiry, not an interrogation. You can think of it as a simple survey. The ramen shop in the village often holds vote for your favorite flavor activities, right? Ha ha ha. Yuto sipped his tea, frowning. You mean, Aizen Suke is here. You didn't know? No, Yuto nodded. You're the first to tell me. I was training in the back mountain. The more lies you tell, the easier it is to be caught. Yuto understood this principle well. So, he simply claimed not to know about this matter. Because very few people come to the Senju clan territory, Yuto could firmly say he was engrossed in training. No one could prove it was true or false. No one dared to trouble the direct genius disciple of the Hokage line based on a slight possibility. I see. The monkey-masked ENBU recorded it and asked no more questions. As he said, it was indeed just a routine inquiry. The attack by Aizen Sosuke was outside the village, and the village remained calm without any disturbances. It made sense for a ninja focused on training to be unaware. As for why they specifically came to Yuto, the reason was simple. Tonight in Konoha, the lone lion, Yuto HYUGA, was among the top 10, if not top 5, strongest fighters. With Minato Namikaze, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and many veteran ninjas not around, Yuto was in the first tier of combat power tonight. His every move drew attention, and his absence was indeed noteworthy for the ENBU to check on. The monkey-masked ENBU put away his pen and notebook. Alright, Yuto-kun, sorry to trouble you. It's nothing. This is just my duty as a Konoha shinobi. But why did Aizen Sosuke come here? Do we have any casualties? Yuto's speech quickened, reflecting his inner unrest. Aizen Sosuke, relying on his superior ninjutsu, dared to cause a ruckus in Konoha. It's infuriating. The Yenbyu sighed. Only Lord Hokage fought him, so there were no casualties. However, thinking of that inhumane underground lab, he remained silent for a while before shaking his head. However, Aizen Sosuke's attack might cause more troublesome incidents. You weren't there to see it. Something happened? Yudo-kun, I can't say much. You can ask Lady Tsunade, but maybe soon everyone will know. The monkey-masked Yenbyu, looking troubled, bid farewell to Yudo and left the Senju clan territory. In the spacious, empty residence, Yudo sat expressionlessly on the tatami mat. He successfully obtained the items from the lab, diverting Konoha's attention to Orochimaru. Tactical and strategic goals were all achieved, but Yudo felt a bit restless. With his rising status and power, he gained immense fame, drawing the attention of villagers and fellow shinobi. Just like tonight, his absence during Aizen's attack had already drawn attention. If this happened a few more times, it would be hard to explain. In his previous life, Yudo often read stories of transmigrators wreaking havoc, starting rebellions in 5 years, and becoming emperors in 3. Even high school students could fool regional officials, but when he transmigrated himself, he found it challenging. Every move required caution, and a single slip could lead to a fatal downfall. Don't underestimate the locals. In a pure battle of wits, a transmigrator might not necessarily outsmart them. Yudo drank his tea and decided to think more carefully before acting in the future. He chose not to deal with those items in the Shikatsu forest for now, but to wait until the turmoil subsided. As for when the turmoil would subside, that depended on Hiruzen's decision. Earlier, outside the village, at least 50 ninjas saw the lab, including 12 or 13 Uchiha and Hyuga clan members, and Koharu Yutane from the village's higher-up. There were also experts from the Inoshikacho trio, Yenbyu members, and members of the Nara and Inazuka clans. Too many people knew, most holding significant positions, including 5 clan heads, making it impossible to silence them. A purge? Branding seals in their minds? That's a joke. If Hiruzen did that, he'd be single-handedly responsible for Konoha's civil war. The Hokage's disciple steals the village founder's corpse and conducts human experiments on many ninjas and civilians. This news would eventually spread throughout the village, to the front lines, and even globally. It's a grave crime. If an outsider did this, Konoha would send top ninjas to fight them to the death, even using it as a pretext to start a war. But the perpetrator was Orochimaru, one of their own. If it's one of their own, the crime is even graver. Traitors are far more detestable than enemies. What's more complicated is that Orochimaru is currently the frontline commander. For the sake of stability, a soft approach might be a good option. But would the frontline ninjas obey a guy who insulted the village founder? For the sake of Kekkei Genkai and power, you dared to offend the first Hokage. What about us? As a commander, would you stab us in the back? Bloodline clans, the Hokage line, civilian ninjas. Fierce conflicts could erupt at any moment. So now it depended on Hiruzen's resolution. As the Hokage, he had to bear everything. However, he wouldn't have much time to make up his mind. Yudo waited calmly for the outcome, but he didn't expect to be summoned by Hiruzen before dawn. The Hokage building was brightly lit, and all the higher-ups were present. The first person Yudo saw was his teacher. The blonde beauty's eyes were slightly red. She was never a crybaby, but that night she suffered a huge blow. Her comrade in arms, with whom she shared life and death, had desecrated her grandfather's grave. It was a hard thing to get over. Yudo stood beside Tsunade, patting her shoulder, and bowed with the others. "Yudo, you're just in time," said the third Hokage, his voice icy as if holding a piece of iron in his throat. "You, your teacher, and I are going to the land of hot water. We have some family matters to deal with." Family matters of the Hokage line. Yudo draped the cloak over his shoulders, tightened the ninja tool pouch at his waist, and unrolled the sealing scroll to fasten it to his wrist. "Turn around and look at me," Tsunade suddenly spoke, causing Yuto to turn and frown. "Your collar is flipped." Yuto lowered his head slightly, watching his sensei fuss with his collar absent-mindedly. He was now taller than Tsunade. The Branch family boy understood her feelings well. Many people, when their thoughts were in turmoil, would instinctively keep themselves busy to avoid idle thoughts. "Sensei," Yuto said, staring at Tsunade's pale cheek. "It might sound strange, but I think you need to be stronger." Tsunade remained silent, not responding. She had grown up with Orochimaru, and after their ninjutsu matured, they fought on battlefields together for years, earning their fame through blood and bonds. In Tsunade's mind, if there was a most trusted comrade list, Orochimaru would undoubtedly hold a spot. However, the former friend betrayed the village, dug up her grandfather's corpse, and shamed the will of fire. Now, as a member of the execution squad, she had to capture or even kill Orochimaru, sacrificing him for their cause. Former comrades, now enemies. The fate of shinobi was always unpredictable. "Tsunade-sensei," Yuto spoke again, his tone becoming soft but serious. "Pull yourself together. You know how dangerous it is to go to battle with an unstable mind, especially considering your hemophobia. Everyone gets confused sometimes, and kid, you need to learn to take care of women." Tsunade patted the boy's collar and continued. "As Orochimaru's comrade and the first Hokage's granddaughter, I have to go. But, Sensei, your hemophobia, are you sure it's okay? When I made a name for myself in the shinobi world, you couldn't even refine chakra, you little brat." Tsunade ruffled Yuto's hair and chuckled. "I'm not that fragile. Orochimaru must have known this day would come when he did such vile things." As they spoke, they walked out of the house, heading towards the village entrance. Outside the gate, a dozen people were already waiting. Despite the hasty operation, Hiruzen Sarutobi had still assembled a sufficiently powerful squad, mostly composed of support and reconnaissance members since he himself was present. Yuto nodded slightly to the Umbu with the monkey face mask, acknowledging him. The atmosphere was heavy. Everyone knew what they were about to do. They were going to capture the front-line commander under the Hokage's leadership. Would Orochimaru surrender peacefully? No one held an optimistic view. A fierce battle was inevitable. Although it was called a capture mission, it was more of an execution. Everyone felt the pressure, not because they feared failing to capture Orochimaru. With the Hokage and Tsunade present, failure was not an option. The key concern was what would happen after they removed the unit commander. Hiruzen Sarutobi, also cloaked, had flame-patterned edges on his garment, a special design for the Hokage. Sensing the squad's oppressive mood, Hiruzen took a puff from his pipe without speaking. For the sake of the village, he had to take down Orochimaru, either imprisoning him for life or killing him on the spot. Given his understanding of his disciple, the first outcome was nearly impossible. The three legendary Sannin were his pride. For Hiruzen, the will passed down from master to disciple was more significant than blood ties. Personally dealing with a beloved disciple he had watched grow was a bitter task, even making his tobacco taste bland. But he knew he had to do it. With a resolute stance, he would respond to this betrayal, declaring to the world that the will of fire was not wrong. Orochimaru was. Only by acting this way would Konoha remain united and focused on the war. In times of chaos, harsh measures were necessary, a lesson every competent leader understood. As for the future, it would unfold step by step. First, they had to quell the turmoil before addressing anything else. Hiruzen put away his pipe and quietly said, "Let's go," leading the group towards the land of hot water. A few hours earlier, Hiruzen had ordered Jiraiya to return from the land of rain. During this time, Jiraiya would manage Konoha's affairs. Hiruzen hadn't disclosed the exact reason to Jiraiya. The distance from Konoha to the land of rain and the land of hot water was about the same. By the time the execution squad reached their destination, Jiraiya would have just arrived in Konoha, making it impossible for him to catch up. Through his actions, Hiruzen demonstrated to everyone that he was still a vigorous leader, with a capable lineage of disciples. The execution squad consisted of top-tier shinobi, with even the weakest being a newly promoted jonin. The path from the land of fire to the land of hot water was well maintained by the frontline troops, so they faced no obstacles. Upon entering the land of hot water, the squad slowed down, a mutual understanding among experienced shinobi to conserve chakra and stamina for the upcoming battle. 30 kilometers from Konoha's camp, the squad halted. The team, mostly Umbu, operated methodically. Some took up guard positions while others disappeared, likely scouting for information. Predictably, they encountered Konoha's reconnaissance personnel. After revealing his identity, Hiruzen inquired about Orochimaru's recent activities. He didn't dismiss the scouts but temporarily incorporated them into the squad, considering the possibility of combat personnel being swayed by Orochimaru. Throughout the journey, Yudo was puzzled. Wasn't the third Hokage worried that Orochimaru would flee if he got wind of this? But seeing Hiruzen's demeanor, Yudo refrained from asking. Besides, he was exhausted from using his masked mode a few hours ago and the long trek, so he didn't feel like talking much. After nearly an hour's rest, Hiruzen suddenly spoke. Yudo-kun, you've been on the land of hot water battlefield for a long time. Where would Orochimaru usually be around this time? Lord Hokage, at this time, he should be in Konoha's camp. What would he most likely be doing? Reviewing documents, studying maps and formations, teaching subordinates ninjutsu, meeting heads of various ninja clans here, or even preparing to assassinate enemy experts. In other words, doing what a good commander should do, right? Yudo didn't respond, finding the question hard to answer. He simply bowed and went to Tsunade. Hiruzen remained silent for a long time, showing no expression. He just took out his pipe again, smoking with his back to his subordinate. After another short rest, the execution squad set off again, this time stopping 5 kilometers from Konoha's camp. Hiruzen handed an order to an Umbu member. Tell Orochimaru to come and see me. Orochimaru-sama, you must leave immediately, for your and Danzo-sama's safety. In the heart of the Konoha camp, the root member code-named Badger stared intently at Orochimaru. Even through the rat-faced mask, his urgency and anger were palpable. The third Hokage could arrive at any moment. No, by now, the execution squad is probably at the door. Orochimaru responded calmly, not even lifting his head. Badger gritted his teeth, but felt helpless against the vastly superior Orochimaru. When the human experimentation base was exposed, Danzo immediately sent Badger to the Konoha forces in the land of hot water to inform Orochimaru of the situation. As Orochimaru's accomplice, Danzo was primarily worried about being implicated himself. Following his orders, Badger had been urging Orochimaru to defect immediately. However, to Danzo's and Badger's surprise, Orochimaru did not flee upon hearing the news. Even as the situation became dire, the commander of Konoha's Eastern Front continued calmly reviewing a battle casualty report from 3 days prior against Kirigakure. Badger could no longer contain himself and stepped forward, dropping the honorifics. Orochimaru, you. Suddenly, Orochimaru's golden snake-like eyes glowed, and several gray-brown serpents emerged from his sleeves, instantly coiling around Badger's body. The snakes, soft and ribbon-like when attacking, became as hard as steel once they wrapped around him, making it impossible for Badger to break free. One small snake hissed and bit into Badger's throat. Poison flowed through his bloodstream, causing intense muscle pain and paralysis. I'll give you only one chance to speak wrongly. Orochimaru's raspy voice slithered into Badger's ears, delivering a terrifying pressure straight to his brain. Badger opened his mouth, enduring the pain, seemingly trying to say something. At that moment, rhythmic knocking came from outside. Both Orochimaru and Badger recognized it as a signal from the third Hokage's subordinate. "Orochimaru-sama," came the voice of an Umbu outside. "The Hokage awaits you outside the camp. Tell me the location, I will go there." "Yes." A Hokage's order and a hastily drawn map were thrown inside. The Umbu left without ever entering the room. Orochimaru put down his pen, tied his forehead protector, and walked out without a glance at Badger. "Wait, wait!" Badger gasped, struggling against the neurotoxin. "Orochimaru-sama, are you going out to die? Dragging Danzo-sama with you?" Orochimaru chuckled. "You are Badger, right?" "Yes." "Go back and tell your Danzo-sama." Orochimaru sneered, the cold contempt unmistakable. A true leader is one who dares to take responsibility for everything at any moment. Seeing Orochimaru approaching, Yudo was dumbfounded. "You're really bold enough to come here? With Danzo's abilities, he should have been able to inform you of the sudden developments by now. The third Hokage brought so many elites clearly intending to take you down. It's practically a blade at your throat." But when Yudo saw Orochimaru's attire, he understood. The sinister yet handsome man wore Konoha's special Jonin battle armor, with his arm guards and leg protectors secured tightly, and a forehead protector with Konoha's symbol. He was still dressed as the frontline commander. Even at this moment, Orochimaru considered himself the commander of Konoha's Eastern Front. Yudo realized he had fallen into the transmigrator's trap, assuming the original narrative was entirely accurate and using character behavior from the story to predict events. In reality, humans, as complex emotional beings, make different decisions based on various situations. From Orochimaru's perspective, he was highly regarded by his teacher, who not only taught him numerous jutsu but also entrusted him with the role of frontline commander, making him a strong candidate for the fourth Hokage position. When the Moon God attacked Konoha, his status as the next Hokage was publicly established. Reflecting on this, neither Hiruzen nor Konoha had wronged him. On the contrary, they had shown him great favor. "You all wait here, Tsunade, you come with me," Hiruzen said softly, ignoring his subordinate's protests as he and Tsunade walked towards Orochimaru. When the two were about 20 meters apart, Tsunade suddenly strode forward and punched Orochimaru in the abdomen with her chakra-enhanced strength, sending him flying 100 meters back. "Ah, if only I had some popcorn," Yudo thought wistfully. "Orochimaru!" Tsunade's roar was deafening. Her physical prowess far surpassed Yudo's, and her mastery of chakra-enhanced strength and the Yin seal allowed her to crack the ground with every move. Boom! Boom! Two clouds of smoke dissipated, revealing Katsuyu and Manda. Tsunade and Orochimaru clashed, raising a cloud of dirt and dust that reached 100 meters into the sky. Yudo quickly lost interest in the battle. The blonde woman hadn't released the strength of 100 seal, and Orochimaru hadn't used any forbidden technique. Their fight was intense but not to the death. Yudo suddenly realized everyone had been deceived by Hiruzen. The experienced Hokage's goal might not have been to capture or kill Orochimaru. If Orochimaru left the Konoha camp, didn't immediately defect, and didn't use low-level Konoha shinobi as shields, it meant he still had some loyalty, indicating room for negotiation. What was to be negotiated? Yudo pondered. Pretending nothing had happened was impossible. Orochimaru's theft of the first Hokage's body and human experiments had left him no place in Konoha. However, there were many ways to leave Konoha. Leaving as a rogue shinobi would mean endless pursuit. But if he left after accomplishing a great feat, he could be exiled from the land of fire, reducing future pressure and avoiding a life of constant hiding. Orochimaru's departure was inevitable, and losing such a powerful and prestigious figure would heavily burden Konoha, already engaged in battles on 4 fronts. Mishandling this could tip the scales of war. As the third Hokage, Hiruzen had to find a way to mitigate this. Trading Orochimaru's no pursuit for his cooperation with Konoha to make up for lost strength was the ultimate understanding between master and disciple. When Orochimaru walked towards Hiruzen alone, he had agreed to his teacher's arrangement, making up for the lost strength. Yuta watched Hiruzen's back, sensing a strong smell of blood. If both sides lost equal strength, wouldn't they return to the same starting line? Half a day later, explosive news spread throughout the ninja world. Orochimaru defected and fought with the third Hokage in the land of hot water, both severely injured. Konoha's forces are retreating. A flexed his fingers, making a cracking sound. It seems the information was true. Nearby, a subordinate holding a thick file nodded and said, "Lord A, we have confirmed that moon god Aizen Sosuke indeed went to Konoha the night before and had a major confrontation with the third Hokage. Additionally, the information about the experimental base is true. Outside the village of Konoha, there is an experimental point established by Orochimaru using senju cells. Most critically, the sensory team has confirmed that there were intense chakra bursts in the Konoha-controlled area yesterday. Aizen Sosuke, the name of our foe, his foolishness now, it's starting to show." Killer Bee touched his chest. The thin lines transmitting medical chakra were still working, sustaining his life while constantly stimulating body tissues and bringing pain. A snorted coldly. "Aizen Sosuke, that bastard, stirring up trouble everywhere. Killer Bee, next time we see him, we must make him pay." Big Bro's voice sounds eager and bright, but if we face him, we'll need to plan right. Killer Bee, dumbass, stop spewing anything just to rhyme. A heavily knocked on his partner's head. Behind the two of them was a dense army of Kumo shinobi. If you look to the left from the mountain where the Kumo shinobi were located, you would see the Kirigakure forces resting on another peak. Below the two high mountains was a wide plain, and the Konoha forces were retreating towards the border of the Land of Fire at a steady pace. Although orderly, there was a sign of panic. Kirigakure and Kumogakure were like cunning hunters, trailing the Konoha forces from a distance, maintaining a highly ambiguous distance, constantly provoking the nerves of the Konoha shinobi. For an unprecedentedly large prey, the two hunters tacitly stopped fighting each other and pointed their spears in one direction. "We can't wait any longer, let's go." A's body emitted silver arcs of electricity. With the support of the lightning release, his body was fully activated, and his speed and strength increased sharply. With a bang, the two disappeared, and 4 feet landed on the ground, making only one sound. As the two main commanders charged, the Kumo shinobi naturally couldn't lag behind. They dove down the mountain, rushing towards Konoha. At the same time, seeing the Kumo shinobi had already made their move, the Kirigakure forces also launched a fierce charge. These two shinobi villages wanted to take advantage of Orochimaru and the third Hokage being severely injured to completely wipe out the Konoha forces in the Land of Hot Water, and even find the heavily injured Hiruzen to execute their decapitation plan. Both shinobi villages had investigated thoroughly. The moon god's attack on the village was real, Orochimaru stealing Hashirama cells for human experiments was real, and the high-intensity chakra bursts outside the Konoha camp were also real. Konoha had suddenly lost 2 powerful combat forces, one of whom was even the head of the village. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Kirigakure and Kumogakure knew they had to end the battle before Konoha's reinforcements arrived. They had already delayed a few hours due to confirmation of the information. They couldn't wait any longer. In just a few breaths, Killer B and A had charged down the mountain, their speed increasing. By the time Konoha's reconnaissance team saw them, Killer B was already covered in the crimson cloak of 4 tails. Boom, boom, boom. 3 consecutive tailed beast bombs exploded within the Konoha forces, screams filled the air, and countless were dead or injured. "It's the Kumo shinobi. Damn it. Defense unit block them. Shit. Quickly notify Yudo-sama and Tsunade-sama. Kill." Killer B roared lowly, blocking 4 tails in front of his chest, ignoring the counterattacks of the Konoha shinobi, crashing down like a meteor. A's body was covered in electric arcs, his speed incredibly fast. He didn't use any ninja tools but fought barehanded. Each swing of his arm could take several Konoha shinobi live. Under the impact of the AB combo, the Konoha camp was awash in blood. The betrayal by Orochimaru and the news of the third Hokage's possible severe injuries had plunged their morale to rock bottom. It would be an understatement to say they were leaderless. Adding to the misery, the main forces of Kumogakure and Kirigakure also charged in at this time. The three sides clashed, Konoha was retreating step by step, and the shinobi were falling in droves. Fin Nirusen Sarutobi, kill him! A suddenly roared, his voice audible across almost the entire battlefield. In response to his call, besides the cheers of the Kumo shinobi, there was a thunderous lion's roar. Yudo appeared with his right arm wrapped in pitch-black bandages, his chakra armor roaring constantly. With the straight-line speed surpassing the lightning body flicker technique, he crashed towards a lone lion didn't dodge. Instead, he bent his arm into the shape of bull horns, accelerating with a bang, the electric flowers dazzling like a small sun. Lightning release. Lightning oppression horizontal. Lion's Fang bite. Two men highly skilled in taijutsu collided head-on without any evasion. Their tremendous force caused the ground to sink deeply like a meteorite impact. Rocks were thrown by the shockwave, and even the tiny splinters could easily take the life of a genin. The two stood in the pit, their forearms locked in a pure contest of strength, which was more powerful than ordinary A-rank ninjutsu. Go back! Suddenly, Yudo roared, his body rotating abruptly, and chakra spouted from various tenketsu. 8 trigrams palms. Revolving heaven. Caught off guard, A was bounced back. Yudo seized the moment, grabbed his enemy's thigh, and with a burst of chakra-enhanced strength, he fiercely swung forward. Boom! With the assistance of the strength of the 100 seal, Yudo's strength was so formidable that he could break cliffs. He didn't hold back, and A was thrown far away, his speed surpassing a free fall from 100 meters high. A's strong and tall body became a weapon, crashing into the dense ranks of the Kumo shinobi. He kept colliding with his fellow shinobi, breaking their bones and leaving a bloody trail. Kid! A finally stopped himself, surprisingly unscathed. He roared in anger and charged again. What a stubborn brute, Yudo cursed inwardly. Just as he was about to gather his chakra armor again, he saw a peculiar blade attacking from behind, cutting through the air with a whooshing sound. Yudo raised his right hand. With the characteristics of Ryu's steel, he wasn't afraid of any sharp weapon. Bang! The blade fell on the pitch-black bandage, and as Yudo expected, it couldn't cut through his Ryu's steel. However, the next moment, he saw a peculiar hammer. It's the blunt blade, Kabutawari. Yudo's heart sank. It was too late to escape. The hammer fell on the back of the blade, and through a unique secret technique, its power was amplified layer by layer. When the force burst from the thick blade edge, it was beyond human resistance. Yudo was directly smashed into the ground, his right arm numb with pain, clearly more than just a surface injury. The blunt blade, Kabutawari, was famed for ignoring defenses. Although it was obviously an exaggeration, it showed that its renown came from power and penetration. Lone Lion Yudo Hyuga, was it you who killed Jinpachi Minashi? 6 people appeared in front of him, holding bizarre weapons, all with the blood of Konoha shinobi still wet on their blades. Yudo shook himself free from the soil, looking at the 6 members of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, without saying a word. The fish wasn't big enough yet. Yudo spat out the dirt in his mouth, swallowing the metallic taste of blood from the depths of his throat. Elite shinobis are indeed powerful. Despite never having fought alongside a Juzo Biwa, the user of the Kubikuribocho still coordinated perfectly when needed. Damn it, you lot! A, however, was unappreciative, angrily shouting, "Stay out of my fight! Listen to the boss, you dolt, or you'll pay the toll." Killer B had also appeared outside the deep pit at some point, facing A from a distance. Everyone knew it was a position from which they could perform their deadly combined technique at any moment. Fuguki Suikazan swung the Samahata and grinned, revealing sharp teeth. You, the lone lion, HYUGA, are high on our target list. Because of Jinpachi's grudge, we, the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, are obligated to kill you. Seeing the formidable son of the Raikage about to say something, Fuguki interrupted rudely. If it weren't for today, the 7 ninja swordsmen and you would have fought it out. But today is different. Let's kill him quickly, then we can proceed with our plan to assassinate Hiruzen. We can cooperate temporarily for that. But after today... Hey you guys. Yudo suddenly spoke, tearing off his shredded wide sleeve, exposing his entire arm. Discussing how to kill our Hokage in front of me, a shinobi of Konoha. He paused, his arm wrapped in his roaring gauntlet once more. I'll kill you all. Roar. Like the thunderous roar of a lion, Yudo chose not to evade but to face the combined forces of A, B, and the 6 ninja swordsmen head-on. His signature move, Lion's Fang Bite, was a fierce straight-line charge attack. If he hesitated, its original power couldn't be unleashed, leading only to a quicker death. Carrying intense heat and rage, Yudo disappeared from his original spot and charged towards the 7 ninja swordsmen, aiming directly at Raiga. Choosing the weaker and more fragile target was a very appropriate decision. You are too arrogant, Yudo HYUGA. 2 figures wrapped in lightning release chakra came at him from the side, just as he was about to reach Raiga. From both left and right, like the closing gates of death, they slammed into him. Double lariat. Lightning straight. The collision of their bodies produced a series of bone-cracking sounds that could make one's teeth ache. Yudo's shoulder bone twisted at a 30-degree angle, his chest dislocated, ribs pierced his lungs and other internal organs, and even his cervical spine was broken. His upper body's flesh and bones were almost completely destroyed, a super heavy injury enough to kill a person 10 times over. Since the establishment of Kyumogakure, each generation of Raikage has inherited the name A, and each A has had a life and death partner. The combination technique of double lariat and lightning straight had been honed in Kyumogakure for many years. The angles of attack, the distribution of their strength, and the timing of their execution had all been refined to perfection. Together, A and B could even hold their own against Minato Namikaze. The Lion of Konoha ends here. You are a remarkable shinobi. A, tall and strong, slowly said, lowering his arm together with Killer B, sighing as they stepped back. However, just as he was speaking, he noticed something amiss. On Yudo's cheek, several lightning-like black lines had appeared, extending from his forehead down to his jaw. Regeneration should be used like this. Yudo suddenly lifted his head. Ein Seal. Release, Ninjutsu. Creation Rebirth. A vast amount of chakra was released from the strength of 100 seal on his forehead, instantly filling his body. Cells divided at an impossible speed, and his damaged organs, bones, and tissues were instantly restored to perfection. This was not healing but regeneration. Boom. Under the astonished gazes of the 7 ninja swordsmen and the AB combo, Yudo didn't attack but used the body flicker technique to escape. No. Not escape. When Yudo charged at the 7 ninja swordsmen and attracted the AB combo to his side, the attack was already complete. Killer B saw the explosive tags beneath their feet. At the critical moment, the 8-Tails Jinchuriki, who loved rapping, almost laughed. He remembered a year ago, the first time he encountered Yudo on the battlefield. This cunning brat used an explosive tag without a summoning chain to scare him, ultimately escaping. After all this time, this brat was still using the same trick, huh? No, something's different. This explosive tag. In the blink of an eye, Yudo leaped into the air. To prevent the enemies from escaping, he clapped his hands, triggering his chakra. Mutual multiplying explosive tags. 9,000 linked blasts. The moment the first explosive tag detonated, 4 more were summoned to explode. At the same time, 16 more appeared. The more explosions, the more explosive tags were summoned. This was an infinite explosion kill technique. 9,000 linked summoning explosive tags were all summoned and detonated within a second. A mushroom cloud rose, and Yudo was blown away by the shockwave, falling far back until he collided with a massive rock, barely stopping. His face was ashen, devoid of color, even his fingertips trembling, evidently overexerted. Forbidden technique. Creation Rebirth, appearing for the first time in the shinobi world, was a life-risking move that granted regenerative abilities at the cost of shortened lifespan, consuming an enormous amount of chakra. Tsunade, with her Senju and Uzumaki bloodline, had no problem with it, but Yudo using it was almost fatal. More crucially, Yudo had only recently learned the In seal, so his accumulated chakra was far less than Tsunade's. He had to endure it with his body, nearly drained completely. If only I had a body like that from the impure world reincarnation, Yudo thought, raising his head and using his Byakugan to look toward the explosion's center. As expected, the 6 members of the 7 ninja swordsmen and the AB combo were nowhere to be seen. Just as Yudo was about to get up and search, his Byakugan caught sight of a young body. Green hair, purple eyes, a scar resembling stitches under his left eye, looking like a 12 or 13-year-old child, carrying a unique wooden staff-like weapon taller than himself. Yagura, the 4th Mizukage of Kirigakure. Thanks to this infinite explosion technique, I found the real target. The formidable 4th Mizukage arrived on the battlefield, ignoring the shocked Konoha shinobi, focusing intently on one spot. Behind a rock, a sturdy barrier blocked the blast's dust and shockwave. In a life-or-death battlefield, the one protected by such a high-level barrier could only be the severely injured Hiruzen. Yagura, holding his unique wooden staff weapon, charged at the barrier without hesitation. Flowing water release covered the staff, transforming it into a terrifying blade. The staff touched the barrier, which shattered instantly without resistance. However, Yagura's face suddenly darkened, and his heart sank. The barrier had vanished automatically. At the same moment, he could feel an impact on his lower back. Adamantine prison wall. From a third-person perspective, Yudo felt that the adamantine prison wall secret technique was quite impressive when used defensively. 20 equal-sized adamantine rods combined into a solid prison, trapping Yagura Karatachi inside. 5 Release Great Combo Technique. Hiruzen Sarutobi and his 4 shadow clones simultaneously performed hand seals, unleashing their deadly attack without hesitation. The surging chakra and agile bodies showed no sign of injury. Ninjutsu of 5 different elements exploded in succession, augmenting each other's power. After 5 iterations, they all blasted into the prison. A shockwave more exaggerated than Yudo's explosive tags erupted on the battlefield. Many shinobi were stunned, deafened, and left wobbling, staring blankly at Hiruzen in his full glory. What's going on? The 3rd Hokage, wasn't he gravely injured from the internal conflict? How? Before they could figure it out, Orochimaru's figure appeared beside Hiruzen. Countless snakes poured out from his sleeves. As the 5 Release Great Combo Technique completed its mission, these snakes also drilled into the adamantine prison wall, attacking fiercely with venomous bites and constricting coils, filling the prison. Bang! After the smoke cleared, the adamantine rods reverted to Enma, who stood behind Hiruzen. Though Enma's arm hung limply at a strange angle, he still looked imposing. Cough, cough. On the ground, the childlike 4th Mizukage held a broken wooden staff, gazing blankly at the sky. His right arm was severed at the shoulder, and his body was covered in burns, electric shocks, snake bites, and poison. Not an inch of skin was unscathed. Mizukage-sama. Quick, save him. I'll hold off the Konoha bastards, you go. On the battlefield, numerous Kirigakure shinobi, seeing their Mizukage near death, chose not to flee but instead charged desperately towards him. At this time, Yagura had not yet been controlled by Uchiha Obito. Kirigakure was not yet the dark and oppressive bloody mist. Although closed off and fraught with conflict, they were not indifferent to their leader dying in battle. "Everyone, stay back!" Yagura suddenly roared. No one could imagine such a small and near-death body could burst with such strength. The wooden staff broke in half, and the fourth Mizukage used it as a crutch to support himself. As the Mizukage, "I command all of you, leave immediately. Now!" Yagura stared at Orochimaru and Hiruzen, standing his ground firmly, his chakra surging like a boiling tsunami. "Juzo, Fuguki, Raiga, Hozuki, if you are still alive, take everyone and leave." After saying this, he let go of the broken staff. The one-armed Mizukage began forming hand seals. Massive waves appeared on the battlefield as Yagura drained every cell, crazily extracting chakra to unleash Kirigakure's signature ninjutsu. Water style. Great waterfall technique. A tsunami-like water-style attack rushed towards the two Konoha shinobi. Orochimaru lowered his head and pressed his bitten fingertip to the ground. Summoning. Triple Rashomon. The massive demonic gates collided with the tsunami, creating a stalemate. Behind the third Rashomon, the powerful master and student pair fell into silence. Orochimaru. Finally, Hiruzen spoke softly. "Yagura won't last much longer. I will kill him. You go pursue the fleeing Kirigakure and Kumogakure shinobi." "Yes." Orochimaru paused before saying the word. "Sensei. I just heard the name Hozuki. Is he the descendant of the second Mizukage? How old is he?" "He is still a kid, but in the past few months, he has caused significant losses to Konoha's forces. Some say he is a prodigy favored by the Seven Swords. Kill him if you see him." "Yes, Sensei." They fell silent again. Both knew that Orochimaru would not return. Stealing the first Hokage's body and conducting forbidden human experiments were undeniable crimes. Orochimaru could no longer stay in the land of fire. Spare Orochimaru from pursuit. Or help Hiruzen set a trap to cripple the enemy's high-level combat power. The unspoken exchange between master and apprentice was complete. Upon returning to the village, Hiruzen would announce Orochimaru's permanent exile and expulsion from Konoha. After that, the master and apprentice would part ways, likely never to meet again. "Sensei, my partner is Danzo Shimura." "Yes, I know. It can only be him." Hiruzen sighed. It was expected. The number of high-ranking individuals who knew about the first Hokage's grave was few, and Danzo was the prime suspect. "And be careful of Aizen Sosuke." Orochimaru's tone was calm. "I am confident in my methods, and Danzo's tongue-cutting curse is nearly foolproof. So, I am puzzled as to how that mysterious man knew the location of the base. Aizen Sosuke is closer than we thought? At least not as far as imagined. The one wearing the impenetrable mask might be someone we both know." "Orochimaru," Hiruzen's voice was complex. "If you became Hokage, you would do better than me." Orochimaru shrugged nonchalantly and walked away without another word. From then on, he was no longer Konoha's shinobi. Watching his beloved disciple leave, Hiruzen rubbed his temples in frustration. The Rashomon disappeared, revealing the panting fourth Mizukage. "Yagura Karatachi." Hiruzen spoke softly, looking at the battlefield completely turned around, enunciating each word. "Choose your fate, die here or live in Konoha's prison?" The childlike Mizukage smiled, forming hand seals with one hand to buy time for the Kirigakure shinobi to escape. "Hiruzen, like you, I too bear the village's burden." "Very well. A shinobi may live in ignominy, but a Kage can only die in battle." In the 57th year of Konoha, the 19th month after the outbreak of the Third Ninja War, a major battle erupted following Moon God's attack on Konoha. Hiruzen used strategy and himself as bait, luring Kirigakure and Kumogakure to attack. Konoha fought against two villages and won a Pyrrhic victory. In this battle, the total number of ninja deaths from the three sides was 1,172. Orochimaru was exiled from Konoha, never to return to the Land of Fire. Among the 7 ninja swordsmen of Kirigakure, Kubikura Bocho wielder, Juzo Biwa, and Nobari wielder, Mangetsu Hozuki, were killed by Yudo's explosive tags. On Kumogakure's side, the Raikage son, A lost his right eye, and Orochimaru's sneak attack heavily injured Killer B, causing a Bijou rampage and his subsequent imprisonment in the Lightning Gorge for training. The 4th Mizukage Yagura Karatachi died in battle. 10 days later, in Shikatsu Forest, as white smoke rose, Yudo appeared in the dense yet lifeless forest. "Ah, Yudo-kun, you finally arrived." A small slug saw Yudo and quickly stuck to him. "Hurry up and take these things away, they're so scary." "Scary?" Yudo looked at the ground, which was covered with various items. Scrolls, containers, surgical instruments. 10 days ago, he had entered his masked mode and caused chaos in Konoha, taking these spoils from Orochimaru's lab and then storing them in Shikatsu Forest. "Scary? Are you referring to this?" Yudo picked up a sealing scroll and spread it open. In the center was a red circle with a prominent wood character inside. Inside this scroll were cells from Hashirama Senju. Moreover, these were original samples, directly taken from Hashirama's corpse. The chunk of flesh was a version cultivated by Orochimaru, enhanced with many unique materials Yudo had never seen, forming subcells. "Yes, it's the stuff in the scroll," the small slug screamed. "Yudo-kun, now that you're here, I don't have to guard these things anymore. I'm going back." With a pop, the small slug vanished. Returning to the sage's main body, the slug's memories and emotions were received by the sage, causing a rumbling deep underground that shook the entire forest. The slug sage spoke, its voice as gentle as ever. "Those are Hashirama cells. Even sealed, they emit abundant chakra and life force." "Sage, why was the small slug scared?" The first Hokage's cells remain highly active even after death. Besides chakra, they also attract natural energy. While slugs love nature, too much natural energy is toxic. "I see." Yudo blinked, recalling Naruto turning into a frog when he failed senjutsu training. He thoughtfully weighed the scroll, curious. "Sage, did you ever meet the first Hokage?" "Yes." The slug sage, sometimes quite talkative, would often share many stories with Yudo when interested in a topic, like a secluded woman finally finding someone to talk to. "I've lived for over 1,000 years and met many humans. Even in my long life, Hashirama Senju was extraordinary." She paused, then continued. "Hashirama trained in senjutsu here, but even before formal training, he could sense natural energy. Entering sage mode was as easy as breathing for him. His senjutsu was different from the traditional senjutsu of Shikatsu Forest. If compared, it resembled the Six Paths sage's techniques." Yudo's eyes lit up. His goal for obtaining Hashirama's cells was to complete his bloodline and break the cage bird seal, but hearing this from the slug sage sparked a bold idea. "Unconsciously attracting natural energy, isn't that like toad oil?" Naruto mastered senjutsu quickly, not just because of his vast chakra but also thanks to toad oil, which gathered natural energy when applied. Unfortunately, it evaporated outside Mount Myaboku, making it hard for Yudo to obtain. Could Hashirama's cells have a similar effect as toad oil? Anyway, it didn't require transplantation, so there would be no rejection. Yudo shared this idea with the slug sage, leaving her speechless for a long time. "Theoretically, it's possible, and failure won't have severe consequences." "Then I'll try." Yudo rubbed his hands together, about to act, but then stopped and sighed. "Not today. I have matters outside. I can't be gone too long. Sage, I must leave." He left some of Hashirama's cells as a backup, taking the rest with him. After a few more words with the slug sage, Yudo performed the summoning technique and left Shikatsu Forest. He reappeared in a secret underground base in the land of hot water. Everything remained the same. The massive bloodline purifier, temperature-controlled cell culture room, neatly arranged medical tanks, and the precious corpse of Shinosuke from the main family. Only one piece of God's mask remains, a real hassle, and I don't have the time to hunt for more, Yudo muttered to himself. He carefully stored the scroll containing Hashirama's original cells, checked the security and self-destruct mechanisms, and then left the underground lab. As Yudo said, he was indeed very busy. It took him days to find the chance to briefly leave and retrieve the spoils from Shikatsu Forest, and also maintain the equipment in the underground base. On the surface, Yudo carried a corpse hidden behind a large rock and sprinted toward a certain location. Before long, he arrived at a temporary camp. It's Yudo-sama. The lone lion is back. That annoying Kiri shinobi finally died. He followed us all the way, so arrogant. Yudo-sama, thank you for your hard work. Yudo placed the corpse on the ground and said warmly, check his body for any information. He leaned casually against a tree, appearing to rest but actually reflecting on recent events. 10 days ago, Kirigakure and Kumogakure were ambushed, suffering heavy casualties. The fourth Mizukage was also killed by Hiruzen. To consolidate their victory and compensate for the loss of Orochimaru, Hiruzen temporarily stayed on the front lines in the land of hot water. Subsequently, Konoha cleared the battlefield and pursued the retreating forces. If not for Orochimaru's departure from the land of fire, this battle would have been a complete victory for Konoha. Having endured the initial tough period, Hiruzen called Jiraiya to replace Orochimaru, leading Konoha's forces in the land of hot water. Then, the execution squad set off for Konoha, taking the corpse of the fourth Mizukage, Yagura. This was the biggest gain of the mission. A shinobi's corpse held vast information, and studying Yagura's body would be beneficial in future confrontations with Kiri shinobi. Of course, Kiri would not let this slide. With the Mizukage dead, the council took over most of the village's power. Whether out of personal feelings or village pride, they had to send people to intercept Hiruzen's group. Everyone knew it was a futile effort, but Kiri had to show a strong stance, similar to how Hiruzen reluctantly expelled Orochimaru. These were the rules and bottom lines for all shinobi villages. Yudo and the Konoha shinobi with him were Hiruzen's rearguard, responsible for handling the pursuing Kiri shinobi until they reached the village. Yudo had been exhausted, having not rested since his battle with Hiruzen in masked mode. He also used the ninja art creation rebirth strength of 100 seal in his fight with the 7 ninja swordsmen and the AB combo. If not for Tsunade's care, he would have been bedridden. Fortunately, they were only half a day away from the village. Thinking this, Yudo closed his eyes slightly. Stay alert, I'm resting for a while. His natural tone and attitude were normal for the Konoha shinobi. After all, he was the lone lion.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.